Testing 1, 2. 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 No. Yes. I'm testing sound at the moment. Testing 1, 2. And we're streaming perfectly. Took like it to testing 1, 2. Had to go down 4 to the stream nails to get it. Testing 1, 2. It was suspenseful. Yeah. Testing. Wonderful. Okay. I'll see it. All right. Bye.
How come you don't order moonshine? Always coffee, what's the moonshine?
Vodka is
You better get on them, get moonshine.
okay.
The left one is vodka, the right one's coffee.
Make that public comment.
Oh, vodka? I drink vodka.
One of these is the decaf, you choose the wrong one.
Yes, but he's Steve. He's telling John he has a problem with his neighbor. He's having a problem with his neighbor. I wonder why.
Would there ever be a neighbor live next to me who wouldn't have a problem with it? How's Esther doing here? How's Esther doing here? It's like they attend more meetings when they're not directly cheaper than they do when they are.
Hey, I did hit John up for Colbex.
Who? John Viola?
Yeah. Bob Thompson's always gonna be fast. It's good Yacht Club once in a
All right. Oh, like for the season?
Cost him any money, huh?
For the season? Nice.
But, no, but Bill Bailey or,
John Bailey.
John Bailey. Once you know Bill Bailey.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda, the approval of today's meeting agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we amend today's agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'll go first. I would like to add under new business a motion to accept the police take-home vehicle policy that was presented to us last month, just to formalize the fact that that is now will be a policy for police operations. Okay? So I'll add that under new business. Any other changes to the agenda?
Yes, I have one. And I am substituting a second amendment for the referendum to permit the association to fine homeowners in violation of the declaration of restrictions.
All right, so what I'll do, if everyone's in agreement, the first item under new business, we will just substitute that motion with the revised edition, okay? Everybody okay with that one? Rather than adding something, we'll just modify the existing motion to include the, and everybody has a copy of the revised motion, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll add that. Any other changes?
Fisher Marine contract.
Okay. You want to add a motion to accept the Fisher Marine? Okay. Then I'll add that under new business as well. The Fisher Marine contract. All right, any other additions or modifications to today's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the meeting agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our May 4th, 2019 meeting. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the May 4th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item, President's remarks. Just a couple of things. Number one, if you've seen the board packet for today's agenda, you'll note that the forensic audit information is available. I'm happy to report that we've received the final report from Gross Mendelsohn on the forensic audit, and that information will be available to the membership whenever requested. All right. Second thing I want to mention is just to remind everybody to think back to this time last year and our financial condition at that point in time, and I want you to pay attention to the Treasurer's report. Hopefully people will find the difference to their liking. Remember, we were not in very sound financial position last year. I think this year you'll find that quite a different story. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we had committed to a town hall meeting, 3 of them. We've had 2 so far. We're looking to finalize something in mid-June, mid this month. Maybe in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a town hall meeting. Same thing, we'll announce that. Hopefully, we'll be able to take care of that this week and get an announcement out to everybody. And as with the previous town hall meetings, any topic that people want to talk about, something that comes up, please feel free to send us to it so we can get that on the agenda. And of course, we'll also entertain questions during the town hall meeting, as usual. So other than that, that's it for me.
Can I add a comment about it, just so people know?
Frank, Steve, please do.
Just to give people an update relating to the traffic circle, we are still waiting to get a date back from MDOT. It looks like it's going to be July 11 in the evening, but don't quote me on that until I get confirmation from them. But it's going to be a meeting dedicated solely for the purpose of hearing from the MDOT as well as a Q&A for residents.
Yeah, with regard to the roundabout at 589. Yeah, as a matter of fact, thank you for reminding me of that. So Director Nepper, who was appointed, had some additional surgery. He is recovering. He's still in the hospital in the ICU, but all indications are that he is making a recovery. He can't be here today, obviously. We miss him and wish him well, and best wishes to get well sooner rather than later. So, our prayers and thoughts go out to Director Nepper. Okay, next item on the agenda, announcement of the email vote that we had. Colette?
Okay, there was a motion put forth on 5/2019 by Doug Parks, seconded by Tom Piatti, to conduct electronic vote on accepting the draft forensic audit report from Gross Mendelsohn. There was unanimous agreement to conduct the vote electronically. Is it, can you hear me now? It's on. Our red light's on. Oh, should I try this one? Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Should I repeat that? Okay. Okay, on 5/2019, there was a motion put forth by Doug Parks to conduct an electronic vote on accepting the draft forensic audit report from Gross Mendelsohn. It was seconded by Tom Piatti. There was unanimous agreement to conduct the electronic vote. And then on 5/2019, the motion was put forth electronically to accept the draft forensic audit report submitted by Gross Mendelsohn. Motion set forth by Doug Parks, seconded by Tom Piatti, and the motion was unanimously approved.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we have a presentation from the Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Kerrie Bunting. Good morning. Please take the microphone there.
Good morning, Board, and all the attendees. My name is Kerrie Bunting. I'm the new Executive Director at the Ocean Pines Chamber of Commerce. I've been there since September, so I still say new. With all of the changes in the staff and the Board, I really felt it was time for me to come and introduce myself to the Board. It is so imperative to the Board as well as to the Chamber that we have a great symbiotic working relationship with the OPA board as well as all the residents. A lot of people don't even realize that Ocean Pines does have its own Chamber of Commerce. We were started in 1975. Was it not on? Sorry. I'm a loud talker anyway. So we were started in 1975, so we've been around for half a minute. And in the past, from what I understand, we always haven't had a great symbiotic working relationship with the GM or the board. But I really, really want to have a great working relationship with everyone. I want all the residents and visitors to know that we are here for them. This past Sunday, we had a great community event out at the Veterans Memorial Park, the car show, and the attendance was great, and I hope somebody in here attended and can attest to that. Great, good job. We will be having our flounder tournament on August 3rd at the Pines Point Marina, and usually we have over 100 anglers of all ages, so we encourage everybody to attend that as well. And we're open to suggestions for community events that we can help you with. We are going to be working with Debbie Donahue, it was Denise, but we'll hopefully work with Josh on the Senior Living Expo that'll be held here November 9th. So I want to do a lot more with the OPA, the residents, the visitors. So I just wanted to take this time to introduce myself. I'd love to have someone either from the board or a staff member, once all the staff people get into place, as an ambassador, as Denise was, or even on our board as Mr. Bailey was. So I just want to continue that relationship, and we're here to serve the community. So if anybody has any issues, problems, concerns, suggestions, we're open. We're right on Cathal Road.
Very good. Kerrie, thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues here? All we have?
All right.
Kerrie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next item, we have one other item on the agenda, and that is a presentation from the U.S. Census Bureau. Jillian Cordova.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone. My name is Jillian Cordova. I am a partnership specialist with the Census Bureau. I represent the Eastern Shore, and I work out of I don't work out of, but I represent the Philadelphia Regional Census Center. We cover 8 states and D.C. So I have been all over the Eastern Shore recently, kind of talking about the 2020 census. We're about less than a year away at this point. April 1st, 2020 is Census Day. So I just kind of wanted to give you a brief update. Fortunately, Ocean Pines is definitely not one of the areas I'm concerned about when it comes to getting a census response, and that's typically what I'm out doing. But at the same time, we have a lot of different ways that we hope that we can get this area a little more involved in the census as well. So just kind of a quick update on the census and some of the changes. This is going to be the first time in census history where we're going primarily electronic. So March of 2020, everyone is going to get a card with a code to go online and fill out your census. However, we realize that's not a great option for everyone, so you can also call in your census and also request paper copy. And we've reduced the questions from about 30-something questions to 10 or 11, and we'll know exactly what those are by the end of June. A few other things when I'm out in areas, like I said, looking at concerning areas. Ocean Pines is not one of them. Your predictive response score in history has been pretty good. However, we do like to mention that we have undercounted populations, which include children under the age of 5. It's been very hard. The more complex of a housing situation, the more difficult it is to get that response. So we want to make sure that we're working with communities to get that messaging out to families of small children. Also, with the electronic census, we're looking at making sure we have space available for a population 65 and over to go in to respond to the census. Some of the ways we do that is by working at a county level, creating these complete count committees, which can be done at any level, but right now I've been working primarily with the county, but any neighborhood or residents that are interested in putting together these committees to spread the messaging of the census, I'm happy and available to do that with you. But when we look at complete count committees, we kind of look at the county overall in this sense and pick census messaging to reach the areas where we need to kind of get the message out a little more. For example, the 65 and over population or the children under 5, or in other communities that might be areas where we have not a lot of English-speaking population. So that's kind of the function of a complete count committee. And I can tell you that so far in the county, I've been working with Kelly Henry out of the county planning office, and she's working together to pull that committee. So you might see some more messaging and information, or maybe some pools to have more people involved in working with that committee. Also, just basically working with Ocean Pines, some of the small ways the community can be involved, and I know I was working with Denise previously, is using some of our marketing and some of our press kits, just getting the message out there, newsletters, invite us to events. I'll have some fun giveaways and things like that. I'm happy to set up a table, talk to members about the census, get some information out there. And then kind of my big ask and why I'm here today is that Worcester County has had a really low response when it comes to applicants for the 2020 census, so I'm kind of talking to everybody in here today. We're looking to hire locally for all of the jobs. Jobs start this summer in August, and we'll have operations that run through next summer. The pay is $18.50 an hour for starters, but there's also opportunities for supervisory position, team leads, working out in the field. We'll train everyone locally, and then we'll give you whatever device that we may use. It might be an iPhone, a tablet, or a tablet to get out there and be kind of running these operations. And we've got different types. So if you're not much of a people person and you kind of just want to do something from the privacy of your car, you could drive around and help update the maps. We'll send you assignments and train you on how to do that. But as we get closer to the census, we'll have those teams going out there and actually doing the door-to-door enumerations. But between this summer and next summer, we have those operations, as well as other ones like for those that have P.O. boxes where we won't be sending that code to respond to the census, we'll go ahead and deliver them door to door. Go ahead, look like you have a question. Do you have a question? Okay. Sorry, it's a lot of information, but I just really want to get out here and spread the word. All applications can be filled out online at 2020census.gov/jobs. I can leave some information in here as well, and I think I've kind of left it at the community center and next door. And if anyone else really wants to get involved in the census, you want to have your business, your community organization or club, I'll leave my card as well, and you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to kind of facilitate meetings, set up information sessions, or do a brief complete count committee training.
Jillian, thank you. Real quick, since you had been working with Denise in the past, I ask that you contact our GM and stay coordinated with him and keep that line of communication going, because it sounds like there's opportunities to promote the event, and also information on those jobs might be very beneficial as people become more aware of that kind of stuff. Maybe perhaps we can put that information on our website or something along those lines to help promote that as well.
That's fantastic.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions for her while...
Yeah, I have two questions. So will there no longer be people coming to your home to help you complete the census?
There will be. We will give people the option to respond online, and then by the late April, if there's no response to that, and we'll send some follow-up, hey, don't forget, we'll send a paper copy, and if we get no response to that, between May and July of 2020, we'll have teams out actually doing the door-to-door enumerations at that point.
Okay, and so those options will be presented through a mailing?
Yes, through a mailing.
Okay. And then the space to go in and complete the census, what does that mean?
So when I talk about complete count committees, we just ask that people utilize community resources. So one great example are public libraries. It's just having some computer space set up, someone that's versed on the census to be able to say, hey, we're open these hours, come in, fill out your census, and we have someone to work you through it a little bit. So just utilizing those sort of community resources, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jillian, thank you so much for your time. All right, next item on the agenda, Treasurer's Report. John Viola.
Okay. So let's look at the financial change for the month. So month of April, I don't know where that came up there. These are not the right slides. Those are not the right slides. Those are March. Somebody didn't do something.
Where's Steve?
I can adjust accordingly, but those are not the slides. I don't know what happened. They were in
Yeah,
there.
that's March.
Yeah, I have the April well, so I can do it if they can't get it corrected. Yeah, we have the everything that says April. I don't know what happened. Yeah, well, this will be better. So how about we shut that down, and I can read it to you, and I can give you a good, unless Michelle can do something. Bless you. Yeah, I thought she caught up right away, but I can do it. Well, she just has to get the right month, I guess. It's June. Okay. Now we're going. That should be it. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, let's hear it from Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, so let's do it. So the month of April, right? Final month of the year. Revenues under budget, 40,000. That's for the month. Let's use rounded numbers. Expenses and new capital over budget, approximately 30,000. That's going to bring us a net operating loss for the month of 70,000. Not uncommon for April. Okay. Those are unaudited. All the numbers I give you today are unaudited. So financial change for the month of April, favorable, we were 92,000, offset by an unfavorable variance. So the favorable, and I'll get into that more where that is, basically you gave us 70,000 unfavorable to budget. And I'm going to give you the detail a little differently this month. Let's go to year to date. Okay. Revenues over budget, 535,790. Expenses over budget, because of the more revenue, we needed more expenses, especially at the Yacht Club, 392,000 rounded. New capital, 13,000, and that's because we don't have a new capital account yet. Hopefully we get one in the near future. Total net operating, favorable to budget, approximately $131,000. We heard the president open up the meeting with saying a big difference from last year. Last year at this time, I was probably giving you a number that was in a big loss position. Let's just leave it at that, which we're taking care of. But for this year, we were positive to budget, $131,000. These are unaudited. We still have the audit coming up, which I'll talk about a little more. But $131,000 favorable. It's pretty good. Next slide. So what was favorable and what wasn't? We had favorability of $432,000 in certain amenities and departments. It was offset by unfavorable variance of $288,000. We know about the new capital, and that's the detail to the $131,000. I'm going to show you the slide where I'll show you all the favorability and the unfavorable in the next slide. Okay, so what I did in the past, I would always give you what was favorable and unfavorable. Here I put it all together so you can get the whole feeling of it, and let's see how this works. When you look at the amenities, and I included rec and parks for this for now, when we do the annual meeting, I'll give you more detail on this. But when you talk about amenities, when you talk about golf, when you talk about the yacht club, and everything that we hear on an operating basis, and with rec and parks that I put in there, and most of the favorability was rec and parks, we are $231,000 favorable to budget. If you look at golf, golf was basically in line with the budget, and the budget does show a loss, but we're in line with that. Now, what happened with golf this year? 2 items where I thought we would have more favorability. One, in September, October, it was the wettest fall on record. It affected all golf courses. We probably lost a half a month of revenue that would have been real nice to have there, and definitely would have made us favorable by probably favorable to budget, probably about $20,000, $25,000, more so than in the past. We compared it to prior years on how much we lost, so there was favorability there. There was an accounting accrual that we had to make based upon requirements on our HR side that affected golf that I will not have next year. So golf was in line with budget. Yacht Club came in favorable to budget, still lost money around $80,000, but favorable to budget about $20,000. Rec and Parks was very favorable, aquatics, everything. So just keep in mind, our amenities, when you take it all together, it was pretty much neutral plus the Rec and Parks. Let's go to police. Police was favorable, $91,000 to budget, favorable. Whether it was a position that wasn't filled or whatever, or a different situation, saving there on his budget. Very good. Public Works favorable, $45,000, basically the same type of explanation. Finance favorable, $30,000. Fire EMFs, $17,000. There's the favorability over $400,000 to budget, okay? Like anything else, we have offsets, unfavorable. What was unfavorable? The GM office. And I have discussed this all year long. So the GM office was unfavorable. We had more HR salary than what was in the budget. We also had some severance in there that I don't believe we'll have this year. So we will be more favorable this year on the GM office, if not flat. Admin, $90,000, unfavorable. You heard me speak about this all year. You hear me speak about legal fees. Our legal fees just keep going up. So we had a budget of $75,000 for this 2018-2019 year for legal. $75,000 came in around $150,000. We could talk about golf. We could talk about the yacht club. Legal fees is affecting our assessment. One piece. Also in there were consulting fees, mainly consulting on the IT side was unfavorable, about $100,000. There were offsets. What was accrued for the forensic audit came in a little favorable, although our forensic audit cost us approximately $200,000. General maintenance, well, the $90,000, we all know about that. If you were listening each month, a lot of that was done for renovations for the yacht club. Certainly positive renovations, but renovations that were not budgeted. The new capital, basically $13,000. That brings us to a favorable $131,000 to budget, okay? I'll stay afterwards if anybody has any questions on it, but that slide tells you basically the whole year. Again, unaudited. I need the financials from the accounting firm, and they are starting the audit right now. Okay, let's look at our reserves. Very important. That's where our money is. Talked about this all year. The bottom line is this. In the replacement reserve, if you go down towards the bottom, the transfer where it says spend, we spent approximately $1 million. I've given you the detail all year long, but most of that was we started to put in the North Star system. The North Star system is our new software. So, you know, big part of that is the North Star. I'm not going to get into all the detail now. That'll be at the annual meeting. For the bulkheads, the $700,000, Colby will handle that in her update, as well as the bulkheads. When I came in 2 months ago, bulkheads was definitely at the top of my list on something that needed to be jump-started. Colby will talk more about that and the spend. The roads, well, the roads are the roads. we transferred the money that we had put in there last year at budget time and utilized that for the forensic audit. The board did that, and they did it all by the bylaws. All right, so that's where we are on the reserves. We have a reserve study that backs all that up. I'll give you more detail in the next meetings because of all the construction going on. Next slide. Okay, so let's look at our cash and short-term investments. We all know that we're laddering, which is it's less risk of an investment. We're laddering CDs, which you have them come and do each month, not all in the same month. We're getting approximately 2.4% on our money. Pretty good. Rates are coming down. Our controller is doing as much as he can and shifting money to get the best rates possible. At April 30th, the association had approximately $14.6 million in cash. Approximately $7.9 million invested in CDARS, fully FDIC insured. Approximately $6.7 million in money market. We're getting 2% on that. I think he's doing a good job. All FDIC insured. Okay? And that's it for the Treasury report.
John, thank you.
So next is
Next
GM.
item on the agenda,
so it's me.
operations.
Right, so operations report on the GM side. Kind of broke it down here. I'll call it initiatives. We all know about the clubhouse, craft building, police building, cart barn, North Star, all what I would call initiatives, all construction or new implementations. I'll give you some background on the clubhouse and where we're at. First of all, I did set up an advisory team made up of experts in the field in construction, notably Marvin Steen, and members of his team who advises on that, Frank Brown, who was a contractor. I have a board member on there, as well as some other individuals from the association. We definitely are in the demolition stage. If not, it's basically completed, and there's just some cleanup there. So the demolition has started. We have made the course operational. John Malinowski and his team, the Golf Pro, I believe, have done a really good job keeping the golf course operational and functional, and I don't think we've lost a beat on anything there. I've been down there. I talked to the golfers. I talked to the outside play. It's all positive so far. There is food and beverage there also. And keep in mind, somebody brought up to me, what about your golf outings that you have there? And we do have 4 over the summer. The first one was yesterday. I went down there, I watched the golfers, I spoke to them. They had a good experience at the golf course. Right after that, and they had breakfast there and some refreshments or whatever you want to call it. And then they went to the Yacht Club. So I might have lost some money at Turns Grill, or we did, but that money was captured within Ocean Pines, captured at the Yacht Club. They had their lunch there, they had everything there. I went, it was excellent. The food was terrific, and they all had a good time. So we will monitor those banquets to ensure, or at least I will, to ensure that somewhere within Ocean Pines we're capturing that money. And everybody's having a good time. Okay, we do have drawings. We're in the process of the second stage of the drawings. Hopefully this is the last one, and we'll probably be getting them in the near future. Craft building. We had 4 construction bids. We did give the analysis to the board. I believe it's part of their package. There was a thorough review by the team that I put together for that. There is actually an excellent analysis that was done by Eddie and the team. Apparently, they had this whole formatted. I guess somebody else in the past did it. I thought it worked really well, and we'll use this for all types of RFPs, reviews in the future. What I want to point out here is the recommendation from the team and from the GM was not necessarily the lowest bidder, but we do have a complete analysis on whether or not the bidders met the requirements, which was a big part of that. So there was a thorough analysis. It was given to the board. If there's any questions, and I have answered questions from them, I will continue, or if anybody else. So it's not that we just picked somebody. There was a thorough analysis on it, and I thought they did a very good job, the team. Police building, working on the drawings. I know there was a soil sample there. So far, everything's coming back positive. The chief has been involved. Again, I have an advisory team that's working on that. Cart barn. In the past, the cart barn was basically in the reserve study, and the prior GM said approximately $450,000 for the cart barn. I can tell you, as we speak, we're working on a proposal, working with Wayland, working with Marvin is helping me out a lot on this. I believe we will come in way under that number and have a very solid cart bond there. So I'm looking at very positive things there in the sense of the budget. North Star right now, we gave an update. In fact, it's part of the package within the format that Director Daly requested. The North Star team put it together. We had a review meeting last Friday. They're telling me it's on track. It's green. We have green, red, yellow. Right now, it's green. We do monitor that initiative weekly. I also know as we go into it, there'll be a little more detail, but I will give you more on that. Crabbing Pier, I'm going to leave that for Colby. There has been work done there by Public Works, by our team, by coming out of the GM office. Colby will tell you what we're doing there. Compensation study, the RFP was prepared. We again have a work group with board members, employees, outside association members put together, giving advice on that. We did prepare an RFP. It's in the package for the board. Take-home vehicle, you heard the president talk about that. That's right, Chief Massey put that together, did an excellent job. What I liked about it was benchmarked with other police departments. Everything we do, everything I like to see it benchmarked. He did a terrific job on that. Management firm, we have put press releases out on that, and that's one of the things I think we're getting out in front now. You all know that we hired Josh Davis, who's a very positive addition to my team. And there'll be communication more than you've seen in the past. I believe in it. I believe in transparency, and we're getting out in front on that, and you'll see more on that. But on the management firm, I believe we had 5 bids on that. We did a thorough review. Again, the team made up of employees, a director, outside association members. The recommendation was that none of the bids were viable. They were more expensive than the traditional GM position that Ocean Pines and our bylaws call for. Just about all of them did not include information on the basic requirements, specifically the police department, fire department, and several other points. They all basically wanted to use their own software, which was something, if you listened to the treasurer last year, he said that they would probably want to do if we did do that. And as you know, with the North Star, we're already putting in our own software. So it wasn't viable. That was the recommendation given to the board. There has been press releases on that. By direction of the board, we did post the GM position definitely to our website, along with, there'll be other we will also reach out with that. So that's the course we're taking right now. We actually did receive two. So far, we received 1 resume. Okay, annual audit. The annual audit, as I mentioned earlier, is starting. SC&H will do the audit. This is their 3rd year. The opening meetings with them went very positive. I was there with the controller. I will be there every step of the way with him. I'm not anticipating any issues. This is separate from the forensic audit, which the board has talked about. This is our annual audit, okay? And once that's done, I will have the final numbers for this year audited, and that'll be part of the annual meeting. Okay, that's it.
Good morning, everybody. I try to pick bullet points on things that I hear the most about over the course of the month between meetings, just to touch base on. Drainage, obviously, is one of those items. We have a group that's been meeting once a month that consists of a couple residents and some people that are familiar with the background on drainage issues. Our next meeting, and it's open to anybody, is going to be June 14th at 9:30 at the Public Works Building. If anyone would like to join us on that, we're just discussing our plan in place moving forward there. The Watertown Road pipe replacement that's in the works, the RFP went out for that. So we'll be getting that back and starting on that project. And I'll be keeping Josh Davis familiar with things coming up so he can put that out there so you all know what's going on. Currently, the team right now is taking measurements on different ditches. We're grading them, and we're going to be working on getting some much-needed areas with the pipes replaced. Please feel free at any time for this or any of the other issues if you'd like to reach out to me directly, and then we'll come out to your area or look at your area. So if you have anything specific, don't hesitate to reach out. I know most of you do anyways, but just want to put it out there. In regards to the maintenance, our Public Works team had 137 work orders put in. So the work orders are last-minute things. They're not the stuff that they normally do on a day-to-day basis. Work orders come in from the community as well as the staff. If we have issues in our buildings and stuff, we put in work orders. We had 137 entered in the month of May, and they got 68 of those completed, still continuing while they're getting everything open. We had 5 pools prepped. Our CPI team had 150 violations sent and homes visited for the month of May, and 87 of those were closed out or complied with. The mowing group, the landscaping group, is mowing everything right now through the pines. The easements have all been cut at least once, and they're getting ready to go through a second time. There were a couple areas where our lawnmowers seemed to jump over some grass, so we're going back to take care of those areas. And one of the big things you may have seen the guys out working this week is starting to fill in a lot of the potholes. A lot of those come from county roads when they come in, or the county is cutting them out and then they do a small fill-in. We're going back through and making sure that we can get those. Some have been brought to our attention. If you see one, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. The Public Works team is working very hard, and obviously they don't see everything, but if you see something, just let us know, and we'll make sure to get on that. In regards to our amenities, we had a very busy opening weekend at the pools in the marina, which was great, because I think the last few years it's rained on Memorial Day weekend, so hopefully the weather is a sign of a really great season at our outdoor pools and marina and the beach club. Everything was very busy. Our camp is almost full. We take 130 kids a week, and we're just about at capacity. So Debbie and her team are working really hard. They're going to have a fun summer with the kids. And we have a large pickleball tournament next weekend on June 8th and 9th that's completely sold out. People come from all over the United States. They did last year as well, and they come out and play in this tournament. So if you have any interest in going over, it's really actually a neat thing to see. Our bulkheads. In regards to our bulkheads, which is something that I bring up every time because we're really working on trying to get a good system in place on moving forward. John has evaluated with us, and we're working diligently on a timeline going forward with those homes, which we'll put out as we get that in place. Fisher Marine is coming in to finish the work on West Mallard that has been at a standstill. Can you go to the next slide for me? So each month I'm going to go ahead and have this updated on what our spend is. The blue line, if you can't see it, is the current contract budget of those contractors at the bottom, and the yellow gold is what has been spent to date. You can kind of see that we're not close to the top where we want to actually be, because that means we're getting a lot more done. Some of the things have been weather-related, some have been other issues, but it's a top priority for us moving forward with the bulkheads to get a really good system and get things completed. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this will be another slide that I'll be doing. I know it's small. If anyone would like a copy, you can let me know. This is the major project spending to date. Again, the blue line is what is budgeted. The gold is what is spent to date. The red will show over budget, which hopefully we won't show. And the green is that it's completed on track with the budget. The White Horse Park Playground, John touched base on the other ones, but the White Horse Park Playground is scheduled to be delivered June 3rd and completed the week of June 17th. It's going to be a really nice playground for the kids. We wanted it done before camp. And I did want to point out the swim and racket tennis courts on there were budgeted at $100,000, and we got those completed for a little over $15,000. So we saved about 84 grand. Can you show the next slide, Josh? So those were completed about 2 weeks ago. So we had probably almost 80% of it was cracked. So that's over at the swim and racket tennis courts. So we're glad to get that done. We saved 84 grand on that project by not doing what previously was supposed to be done. So we looked at a saving there, and the neighbors in that area are real happy because they want to get out and do that. So, all right, thank you, everybody.
Colby, John, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comments. As is customary, please state your name and your address, and be advised that public comments are limited to 5 minutes. So the floor is now open for public comments.
All right, my name is Phillips, 12th floor guy. I'm here, I talked to, Colby was on my house, and I mentioned that a couple months ago, I got problems with the runoff, and what I call a canal that runs into the bay. You all promised me 2 months ago you was gonna do something. Nothing is done. That's one. These people what live where the canal is, I take care of the house. They sent you people twice a letter, this Lord guy number 10, they say I never get a response from the board. You're all supposed to put a 4-foot pipe in it and fill it up. The house, the side is washing away every time. So that's one thing. But the most thing I'm coming here is the next house for me, Lord guy number 14. This guy, I've been 28 years there, and every year new people move in that. That house is so filthy in the inside. The people mentioned 2 months ago to me, the lady, that the kids, and they're all sick and it stinks. There's no central air condition. The man does nothing. And then the trees, he got nothing than trees. His trees, the leaves and everything is hitting my house and my roof. I went twice to the real estate, or maybe 3 times, and the guy wants to do nothing. You got over here violations on Sandpiper Lane, Starboard. I want you people to come and check that house over and exactly get the health department on it. I didn't know what to do, and the lady told me 2 months ago she was sick. They cannot afford to pay $1,200 rent a month, so they had to stay in that house. They had to sign a new contract on the 1st of April for a year. And I'm trying to help these people. But I want you people to look that house over and get the health department. At least 50% from them trees has to be cut. Everything is over my house. I don't see any reason that I go pay a guy to cut the trees down. It's on his property. And I want help from you people. You promised me 2 months ago that you're going to clean the ditch. Every time when it rains, the water comes in my garage. You people not paying for it. You asked me $35 more for the dues. Do a job. You're all saying yes, but nothing is done, people. That's all I got to say. I hope to get some action on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. John, could you make a note to follow up with this gentleman after the meeting, get some details? Yes. Thank you.
Dutch and I have met a couple times. He still wanted to express his concerns, but we are working with him on the issues. Yeah.
Thank you for the follow-up. Sir.
Good morning. My name is Paul Bree. I live at White Horse Circle. I'm here with my neighbor Rudy, and our house is back up to the White Horse Canal boat ramp. And we've been having, for the last few years, quite a problem with the boats and the jet skis speeding in and out. There's plenty of no-wake signs. It's actually, you know, we know about the problems with the bulkheads. It does damage to the bulkheads. Last year, at the end of the season, when I was taking my pontoon boat off my lift, and I've seen it come up every year, and I try to only go out at high tide. Well, the tide, I didn't realize the tide wasn't quite high enough, and as I was coming off my lift, my boat got stuck on the lift and in the mud, and my insurance company paid $6,700. So what I'm trying to do is find a way to slow these, especially the jet skis, slow them down going in and out. I've been to Public Works. I've talked to Kevin Layfield about, the dredging situation, which apparently nothing can be done until 2021. And there was a sign, I have a picture here, there was a sign 4 years ago that was taken out by a storm, and it was right in the canal. On the other side of the canal, it's really shallow, so no boats can go over there. There was a sign there. I've been for 2 years trying to get Public Works to replace this, and I keep going in. They keep saying it's on the agenda. Hasn't been done yet. So, and the other thing that I would like to bring up is, I know it's a public grant, so there's public coming in there, and there's plenty of Ocean Pines people. Maybe we need a more education from our media, our newsletters and so forth, about what the damage is doing here. And I'm sure some of the people, I see people looking back, but there's some large wakes. And anyway, I'm trying to get some help to slow this down. Rudy, do you have anything?
Yeah, basically, my name is Rudy Jonas. Good morning,
Speak into the
I'm
microphone.
on,
Speak into the microphone so the people online can hear you.
okay. I live next door to Paul at 31 Whitesale. And basically, I have to go with what he's saying. The boats are coming in too fast. They're stirring up the mud. The silt goes to the bulkheads, and we can't get our boats off. Last year was the first time since I've had my boat that I had trouble getting it off the lift. So the canal needs dredging. I've been threatened because I say something to these guys to slow down. I've been threatened. I know Paul has, and it's got to stop. It's costing us because damage is being done to our property, and I'm just sick of it. Paul has been over to the various offices and complained, and we've called the DNR, we've called the police. They come out, but police here in Ocean Pines won't take care of it. That's what we were told, called the DNR. And the DNR comes out, but it's 45 minutes after the fact. These people are long gone. Yeah. So, if you could do something, we'd appreciate your help.
Doug.
Thank you.
Doug, can I just?
Yeah, John, please.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, one of the first things was the bulkheads. I'll include dredging with that, which needed to be jump-started. We're trying to see everything that has been done, has not been done in the past. We have a team. Colby will give you more detail on it, but we are putting a team together. We are looking into it. We know we have to look at the dredging and put something together. So Colby's going to talk about it. I believe the meeting's on June 12th, but I understand what he's saying about the dredging, and we're trying to address it.
I just wanted to know if you could reach out to me directly. I can give you my email, and that way our meeting's on June 12th, and we have a group of people that we're actually discussing the whole dredging process and everything, the signage, everything like that. And then that way we can make sure that we look at your request as a group or your concerns and see which way we can address that. Yeah, no, I know. That's why we already, yeah. Well, the dredging is on our radar, so when you said that I just wanted to let you know that it is on our radar. It has been brought to our attention in other areas too, so.
All right, thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning. Slobodan Trendik, 20 Drawbridge Road. I'd like to make a comment on two subjects, and also just to state, I'm going to leave after my comment, not because I'm not interested in the meeting, but I have grandson's graduation to attend today, and I need to leave town. But I'm here because I feel very strongly about two topics that I'd like to emphasize as part of my public comment. Number one, it's Director Daly's motion that's before the board today. Maybe even shouldn't even reach the floor yet. I'd like to ask the board to really reconsider this. I'd like to ask Director Daly to withdraw the motion, not because I think the intent is questionable, what the motion is trying to achieve. I'm really not here to debate that. I think maybe that will be an opportunity to do so in the future. But, it's about the process. It's transparency. I know John and I are always in favor of benchmarking and using best business practices when it comes to especially sensitive topics like this that affects everybody in the community. And I think this topic really deserves a different platform for discussion before it gets to the board for a vote. A town hall meeting, a public hearing meeting on the issue, presenting examples of what other associations have done with similar situations, so we reflect on best business practices, demonstrating to the homeowners that you as a board and you as the association and the staff have done everything possible that currently you have at your disposal to resolve the issues that seem to be sometimes lasting too long. So consider this as an advice, really, and instead come back and create a time and place for the members and the board and the association that can meet, do it in a discussion session or workshop session, just like what the boards have done in the past, so we can have an interactive dialogue. The concern I have is if this motion passes, I'm sure Director Daly knows that when it comes to crafting a referendum question, there are many ways you can craft a question to generate a desirable result. And that's my concern. Second part of my comment relates to the crabbing pier. I've been asked by many homeowners for opinion on this subject, and I've been asked to look into the matter. As you all know, I've done a lot of homework on this last year, and when I was on the board, a motion was passed by the board unanimously in June, which basically instructed a replacement of the pier. And we fast forward to today, we are actually at the point where the board has voted to eliminate an amenity. Now, I know laws allow boards to do whatever it's within the letter of the law. But when you eliminate an amenity, you set precedents, which means future boards can do similar things to other amenities. Where do you draw a line? How do you decide whether you're being objective or whether you're being biased? These are the issues that I think need to be seriously considered. The fact is that this particular amenity was actually approved by the county based on the research that I did in 1994 when the county approved the development of the Whitetail Sanctuary development as a community. That amenity was actually set aside as a designated open space area. The county rules and regulations require that an open space area has public access. Yet we have basically a place that's been boarded off for a month. The only safe public access to that area has been basically eliminated. And I think you need to really take a look at the rules and regulations, how that space has been designated as part of the required development of that community. That is still, and I do have satellite images and county records, still shows as an open space area. And if you look at the zoning regulations and other regulations, any open space area, unless it's for utility purposes, must provide for public access. So I think you should really give it a strong consideration before you continue to remove everything else that's left there, and look at all the issues related to that particular area and see if you can find a win-win situation with people affected by that amenity and with people that like to have that amenity stay as a community benefit. And that's, you know, something that I really feel it requires another look over by the board. And consider really, if you haven't looked into this, the rules and regulations related to that space, because whether you remove that elevated dock or not, that is still a designated open space area by the county, and it requires public access. So, you know, give it some serious thoughts on this, and you know, I hope you will find you know, a workable situation that's really good for everybody in the community. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Hello. Morning. I just wanted, I actually was going to say a couple of things, but I'm really going to, can you hear me? What? Your name and address. Oh, sorry, Lynn Sika, 56 Bramblewood. I'm here for a couple of things. I just changed my mind on what I want to say after this last discussion. I'm very grateful that there were people here this morning with other issues as to the conditions of their homes, waterways, the way in which they have to live and compromise our lifestyle because of the downtroddenness and some of the filth, decay in homes, waterways. It's really despicable. And as far as what this other person was saying, we need to do something, and I am grateful for Frank Daly and what he is trying to do. I am desperate with 54 Bramblewood. Nothing, all the small stuff is done, but I have just so much filth and decay there, and we need the togetherness of this village. It takes a village to make a difference. We all know that. And I don't want to keep standing up here and blaming all these people that can't get it all done. Those of us that were just up here today, and my heart goes out to you, join my fight. We need to get together and we need to do something, and we need the people in Ocean Pines to pass this referendum. Because I can't sell my house, and if anybody gets the money value on this, that's huge. I don't want to sell my house, and those of you on the waterways and everything else, we have to handle this. And I have no problem devoting my time and stepping up and thanking the board and everybody else for all that you do. And I know we'll get this done together. And my neighbor just wanted to say something. So thank you. And we're going to get this done, right? Right. Okay.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Okay, excuse me, my name is Marcy Mitchell, and I live at 55 Bramblewood. And a few years ago, we did have our house on the market, but when people saw the house across the street, they weren't interested. There's lots of houses like this in the Pines that are full of weeds, trees, unkept lawns, unkept yards. There's lots of areas that are owned by landlords, and they rent these houses, and the people who rent them don't take care of the lawn, and the landlord doesn't take care of the lawn. They're getting to look like they're like slums. You come in the Pines, excuse me, the first two houses you see at the North Gate, their lawns are overgrown. People are going to turn around and leave the Pines, and you can have all the amenities that you want, but if the neighborhoods don't look good, if the neighborhoods aren't clean and safe looking, people are going to just go other places.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning. Paul Sishow, 3 Moonraker Road. I live in a neighborhood where we maintain our properties. However, in many cases, we've been harassed. Several years ago, we had Mr. Dino wandering through the yards looking for, my kids had a bag of cans. They were saving aluminum cans to get money for a mission, a church mission. So don't let this get out of hand, all right? I'm not here to argue with you about a referendum, but I'm a 25-year resident. I am not retired. We've raised our kids here. They both still live in the area. So I'm not just somebody who just landed here. Nothing against that, but we've seen it come and go here. I've seen some really foolish things happen. This is a strong association. The mechanisms are in place if they're just used properly. So if the mechanism's used properly, you won't need a referendum. Everything's in place, and you all know that. All right? So I'm going to leave it at that. Don't let this turn into Gestapo, because I'll tell you what, if Mr. Dino, I find him coming through my yard again, all right, and this turns into the Gestapo, and I catch him looking in the bathroom window while my wife is taking a shower, I tell you, it will not be a good day for him. I'll leave it at that. Second item, the drainage issue. There's areas we live in a lowlands. Things flood. I can tell you there's areas that flood, and then as soon as the rain stops, they clear out. However, at corner of Burr Hill and 3 Moonraker Road, there's been an ongoing issue for 10 years. I email Eddie and I get, yeah, we'll be out. This is ongoing. Mr. Tuttle's aware of it. So, Colby, you're now my point gal. I work in private industry. I don't work in quasi-government, all right? I get 2 weeks of vacation a year. I work hard. I work in a private industry. If you don't do your job, you're walked out the door, all right? Your results are expected. I expect for the drainage issue at corner of Burr Hill and Moonraker Road to be taken care of rapidly. This goes on and on. Right now you walk out there, everything's pretty dried up. But we get a rain, it's weeks. And Steve is am I correct, Steve? Right. It's weeks that ditch is backed up. All right, so let's take care of our amenities. Let's keep things going. I'm not against my neighbors that are having problems with problem properties, but let's don't turn it turns into the Gestapo, and we all know about homeowner associations that have gone bad. This has been a pretty good homeowners association. We live in a great area. Let's make sure we get it right. Thanks.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Hi, Lynn Killian, 1272 Ocean Parkway in the Pines. I'd like to tell you about a meeting that took place that I don't think many of the residents were aware of. That was on March 4th at 10 a.m. at the Public Works Building. I'd like to give you the outcome of it. I received a nice email from Colby of the outcome of this. 2 things we discussed in the meeting today was a working group to work together moving forward and the pathway to get the dock, regardless of the outcome, replaced or not, and a nature preserve, etc. Facilities manager Kevin Layfield has already reached out to the county in regards to planning and zoning on the meeting there to discuss our options on the specific piece as well as the whole project in general. We all agree that there is more phases than just replacing the pier and the costs associated with them. Something the team and I will start piecing together. And then the Public Works Director, Eddie Wells, has added the crabbing pier to our maintenance checklist so we can make sure to stay on top of the area. I'd like to schedule our first working group for Wednesday, March 20th at 5:30 so we can work together and more can attend. We will hold it at the same location as we did today, the Public Works Building behind the firehouse. This is not to go over what we have all discussed many times over, but to take steps moving forward. My team have information to share on the above areas, and then we can all discuss, based on what we find out, what the next phase will be. Unfortunately, that meeting never took place, and we received nice notices from Colby saying that she will be in touch with us. I have copies of the emails if anybody would like to see them, that not all the information is backed by the county, and we would have to reschedule. The next thing we find out is the board has made a decision on this. I thought the board was here to represent all people. This working group, we had some suggestions for the pier if the working group had gotten together. We would have suggested a life ring with the 911 call button placed in case of emergency on the pier. I have seen this in a lot of remote sites, and it would be of little cost. And despite there have been no one able to read any police reports saying that there have been problems in the area, I still think it would have been a good step to have the life ring if something should have came up. Parking, I know, was another issue that was stated that is a problem. The way the fencing is set up right now, will allow 2 cars to park. However, if you move that fencing a little bit closer to the roadway, and you extend it a bit, there would be no room for parking. A sign could be posted saying no parking, maybe with a fine attached to it, and as the police come through on their random checks of the neighborhood, which they do, they could enforce it to let people know that we would not tolerate parking where the neighbors be concerned. Robin Hood Park has enough space for maybe 8 cars to park there. I rode my bike. Between the two places, it takes less than 2 minutes to get back and forth. Small post with poop bags for dogs' waste can be posted. I know that was another concern. And a porta potty could actually be placed discreetly on the right-hand side in the wooded area if necessary. The bike rack was another thing, fine, no expense, just take the weeds away from it. And the pier that is presently there is in good shape. I feel like we're wasting our money to get rid of this additional pier. When the sun rises, sunsets are beautiful, nature is beautiful to view. We are wasting that area by eliminating that space. I feel as though that there was a commentary in the progress by Tom Strauss that summed it up. The South will lose an amenity that many people enjoy. For those who walked or rode their bike to the crabbing pier, the hike or the bike ride to the swim or racquetball club will be too far to be realistic. That was one of the places of possibly relocating it. Kids on the far south side without a driver's license will no longer have a simple, accessible way to relax on a summer day. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Name's Dave Crest, 9 Dove Lane. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the referendum. It seems to me that the odds of even getting a referendum, 51% I'm assuming is the amount to pass. Chances of that are probably slim, if none at all. I understand what this lady was talking about, but I think there are things already in the bylaws that we can do, and we should try them first because, as Mr. Viola said, all we're doing is spending money on lawyers, and we're going to spend a lot of money on lawyers to get nothing, basically. Fines are good, except the fact that the people who aren't keeping the property up don't really care about fines anyhow. They're not going to pay them. They're not going to do anything with the property, so, you know. Well, we have things in bylaws now where the HOA can go in and clean this up and charge them. They're not going to get paid, but these things have to be tried first before we go to a whole nother system that isn't going to work either, unless, you know, you got some special way of enforcing people to pay fines, which you're not going to do. You're just going to have a whole lot of money that needs to come in that's you're never going to see. The lawyers are going to get rich. I mean, but that's... Don't we have the power to go in and clean those properties? Yes, the HOA has the power to do that. They can go in tomorrow and send a crew in there and clean it up and bill the people. Of course, it's going to get, the lawyers are going to make money because then you're going to have to put a lien on the property. And 40 years from now, when their kids sell the property, you'll get your money. But that's it. I mean, there's really not much you can do about it. So I think, but the major thing is trying to get 51% of the owners to agree to a fine system, I think, is just a waste of time and money. I mean, and like like Slobodan said, at least have a couple, you know, meetings just to see what people are thinking, because if you have a little meeting and even 50 people show up and 30 of them say we're not voting for it, I mean, you're wasting your time. That's pretty much all I got.
Thank you. And just a point of order that we'll have, as part of the discussion for the motion today, we're going to touch on a couple of those issues that may provide at least a little bit more information for you. So I'm not saying we're going to make a decision at this point, but if you're still around at the meeting when we're having that discussion, you might find it interesting. So thank you. Other public comments?
we have all these rules already, but they're not being kept. Like this house at 54, they'll have 9 cars parked on the street. 2 of them are blocking a fire hydrant. They have never gotten a ticket. Isn't there still a law that you cannot block a fire hydrant? I mean, it's good to have rules if they're being obeyed, but without these people knowing, especially these landlords or slumlords, unless they know what's happening, they're not going to give a hoot. All they want is that check to come in every month. And if you lived next door or across the street from one of these houses, you'd want something done.
Yes, thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning, guys. My name's Mike Keeps, reside at 1044 Ocean Parkway. I'd like to talk to you about the crab pier. I know it's a sore subject and all, but I've got a few things I'd like to go over with it. According to the police dispatcher, they don't have any record of a police being dispatched to that pier for any calls. Now, I know Mr. Daly said my information was wrong, but however, we both got our same information from the same place. So, right. So, all right. Also, according to the volunteer fire department, there's never been a medic or a fire department dispatched to that location. The pier has an excellent safety history over the years, more so than most amenities throughout the Pines. I don't really see where parking is an issue there because I've been going there for 6, 7 years, and I've never seen more than 2 or 3 cars parked there. They're not interflowing with traffic or anything. There's only 6 houses past the entrance to the crab pier. That's it. So you can't really, there's no flow of traffic. It's not like Ocean Parkway or anything where, you know, you park on the street, you're going to block the flow of traffic. The neighbors are complaining about you know, parking at the crab pier. In the last 6 months, I probably have 100 pictures on my phone of the residents of Whitetail Sanctuary parking completely on the street. Completely. Boats, trailers, cars, you name it, they've got it. Also, the pier was there, it was located there long before a lot of these residents in Whitetail Sanctuary even had residents there, even thought about buying there. And my last thing is, I went to the boat show in Ocean City in February and talked to DNR because I like mussels. And I asked them if you can harvest the mussels in this part of town, in the county. And they informed me that you can only harvest shellfish in Manklin Creek because the other creeks are too badly polluted. They said the St. Martin River north of the Route 90 is off limits to shellfishing. Herring Creek is off limits to shellfishing, to eat. Also, the creek, which is next to the casino, is off limits to shellfish, harvesting and eating. Manklin Creek is the only one that is harvestable to eat. So I'm asking you guys to just reconsider your thoughts on closing the entire crab pier down. I mean, we could always put it there, and if you're finding on a place, take it and move it. You've got a good permit. I went to the Snow Hill. Snow Hill said that they would probably reverse the permit for you because you edited it on May 8th so you could remove the rest of the, you know, the nature trail and all. But they said that they could probably reverse it again to give you the ability to replace the pier. So the only thing I can do is ask you guys to reconsider the vote. And I mean, you're taking the only amenity that we have, water access in Southgate. That's it. There is no other amenity for us to use. That's all. All right, guys, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning. Tracy Jones, 175 Teal Circle. We paid $12,000 in November to have our house jacked up because it's sinking. We are on the St. Martin's River. We have a bulkhead that was just replaced 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago now, but 11 years ago in November, I had a constructional engineer come out, and they stated that the soil was not compacted properly behind the bulkhead, and it is slowly sifting through the bulkhead, which is the reason why our 3-story house is collapsing. So since we've paid $12,000 and had the center of our house raised, everything was good. This is now June 1st, and we have new cracks on the left side of our house because now it's sinking on the other side. My neighbor to the right of me, it's vacant. My neighbor to the left of me is vacant. The neighbor to the right of me, we noticed the soil has completely washed out in one corner. So my husband proceeded to call Public Works. They sent somebody out, and through my other neighbor, who was there at the time, they said that the pipe, the drain pipe, has disintegrated and it needs to be replaced. And when you look at it, you can clearly see it has disintegrated and it does need to be replaced. In the meantime, my house is sinking. And we've paid $12,000. Now we have to have them out again to jack up the other side of the house. I'm sure that's going to be another $12,000. And then I don't know what's going to happen to the right side once we get all that worked out. But until that problem gets fixed, my one question is, who was the company that did the bulkheading 11 years ago? And are we still using that company? Because if we are, we need to get rid of them. Because I'm sure, and 2 houses over from me on the left, they also had the company come out and jack their house up, which was way worse than mine. They paid $34,000 to have their house jacked up. And it's due to their bulkheading and the problem with the sifting of the soil. We're not coming to you saying we want you to pay for it. It's obviously our problem, but is it? I really think we need to look into these bulkheading companies that we're using. I know it's a problem. I know we have a problem getting bulkheading companies, but are they licensed and insured?
Can I just get your address again and name?
175 Teal Circle.
Teal Circle. And your name again?
Tracy Jones. It's a big problem.
Yes.
And on the other hand, the neighbor to the left that is empty, to jump on the bandwagon, he put a neon green dumpster, big, huge dumpster in his driveway, and it's been there a month, and he hasn't been there. It's not livable. The home is not livable. They have weeds growing through the bottom of the floor. They put on a new roof. I've been there 2.5 years. They've put on a new roof. That's all they've done to the house. And every spring, excuse me, every spring the termites fly to my house from his. And we have had termite protection done, but now I have to have it done annually. So
Okay.
that's on the other hand. But the problem with the bulkheads is the biggest problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And John, I think you noticed the, John? John, you got the address for the follow-up? All right. Thank you.
In fact, they're going to go out and then.
All right. Thank you. Other public comments?
Maureen Crespo, 4 Friatuck.
Speak to the microphone.
Maureen Crespo, 4 Friatuck Way. I've written things out because I didn't want to go over my time limit because there's a lot to be said. And you've heard some of these things today, but I would like to say it again because somehow it hasn't been heard in the past. I'm also here to ask the board to please remember, to please reconsider demolishing the elevated crabbing pier. We should, as in the past, repair or replace amenities, not delete them. The board is acting on a recommendation of less than 1%. I would consider that as totally acting without Ocean Pine resident consent. Both the County Environmental and Maryland State Environmental say we have the permits for both the pier over the wetlands and the crabbing dock, and as far as they're concerned, there is no need to remove them. As was just mentioned, they mentioned that the elevated pier and land is considered public open space. Whether the dock or pier is there, it doesn't matter. It still remains open space. Anyone and everyone is welcome there. So why not use the existing pier that is considered in good condition and doesn't cost us anything? The state said it was entirely an Ocean Pines decision, not an environmental, nor a code or permit decision to take things down. I was gullible that there might have been some problems at the pier from the residents. And I guess the board was gullible too. In checking, I found out that there was one person over the years that has been contacting the county, the state, the commissioner, and past boards for years trying to find a way to take the crabbing pier down in his neighborhood. The commissioner has called environmental and told them to come to Ocean Pines to take care of this in the past. One time, it was parking. They came and suggested he call the county for no parking signs. There was no problem at all with environmental. Another time, it was trash in the wetlands under the elevated pier. He came again, and it was minimal, he said. He suggested he call the Public Works and have them check it every once in a while. I don't know if this was ever done. This has been going on for years. He comes up with minimal things to get this out of his neighborhood. At a board meeting, safety was brought up. I have heard also that the Ocean Pines Department was not called in to that site. Then they were concerned about access just in case of an emergency. It is no further than an emergency call to the Yacht Club's voting dock or the hiking trail behind the library or many other places. Another reason was strangers coming in their neighborhood. I happen to be a stranger. The older couple that sit on their chairs enjoying nature are the stranger. The family that rides their bikes there are the stranger. If we don't live in the sanctuary, we are called strangers, not neighbors. Another was noise at night. Again, from what I heard, the police department was not called in either. Why? At a board meeting, they stated that one child was almost hit by a car in all the years the crabbing dock has been in here. Yet, they suggest to put the crabbing dock adjacent to a very busy parking lot at the Swim and Racket. I can't see how kids riding bikes through a parking lot can even seem safe there. Another was a child fell off the dock, even though the mother was right there. Has anyone checked how many have fallen off the water of the many floating docks at the Yacht Club? There's a lot of yacht docks there. Also at Swimming and Racket, there's floating docks. Or anybody fall in the pool. This happens. Luckily, the child was taken out immediately. Let me see. I think we all have to check for ourselves. Again, this man has called the county, the state, the commissioner, the man who is in charge of checking anything to do with environmental in our area he's called. He's also called his boss. If you check the petition that was handed in to stop the removal of the crabbing dock, you will see names of people that live in the sanctuary who like having the crabbing dock in their neighborhood. Gullible or not, the sanctuary are our neighbors. The only fair way is compromise. The land can always be used. We have the permits and may never be able to gain water or wetland permits again. It is not in our best interest to let these permits expire. We need to have the dock in place within 3 or 4 months to keep our permit valid. The board can please look up the exact date. The pier is in good shape. We're asking to please put the dock back where it was. We already didn't get use of it for over a year. If, however, we come up with more suitable site and we are able to get all the permits, we are able to float the dock over. It's very easy. Just float it wherever you want it. There has been nothing at all said that proves taking the crabbing pier away is a good thing for Ocean Pines residents. Let's not make a bad decision. Use our fine police department if needed. Contact the county regarding no parking signs as environmental suggested. Use our Public Works Department if needed, again, as environmental suggested. And best part of the compromise is there will be no waste of money. Again, no wasted expenses. The new dock can easily be floated over to any waterway site. We would be purchasing a new dock, and we will definitely have use of it for many years to come, no matter where it may end up in the future. It is a win-win for everyone. No expiring permits, continue to examine another site, let Ocean Pine residents get back to crabbing this year. Letting the sanctuary understand their neighbors heard them. We heard them. We're following up. We're going to possibly put up parking signs, and using our in-house departments to render help whenever needed. Not wasting any money, but most important, having a community that can get along and can actually come up with solutions without hiring lawyers or getting bad press in the papers. We have this now. We have permits now. We can rebuild another dock now. We do not have another spot, nor permits, nor anything in motion now. We should not give up something in hand and hope for something that may be especially since the new dock, can be floated. Again, the new dock can be floated and used for many years. But I'd like to close with these quotes that one of the directors had, which is what it's all about. The board's obligation is to own, manage, maintain, rebuild, operate, improve, and repair, and/or beautify all, listen to the word, this is his quotes, all streets, rights-of-way, parks, common areas, recreational facilities, bulkheads, and waterways designated on a subdivision platform and/or other easement. The truth is, if we're sitting up here, we don't have the right to pick and choose. We have an obligation to maintain all the assessments of this community in working order. This is one of the boards, and I think every board, when they joined, hopes to do that. Well, we should do it, not just put it in papers for people to see that we know what should be done. We need to follow up what has to be done. Thanks.
Thank you. Other public comments?
All these wannabe board members have to get here. You have more ex-board members and wannabe board members and board members here that I've ever seen. Anyway, Tom Janicek, 17 Lookout Point. First off, I want to empathize with you guys. I go down to White Horse Park all the time, seeing those boats and the jet skis go through. I've been talking about this for years. I find it ironic that we can put a key card and gate thing on the dog park that costs us $35,000 with matching funds from the dog owners to build, but we have a $350,000 brand new pier out there and we can't get a gate. So we don't have the public just rolling in and out of there every day. I mean, I know it's used by crabbers in the morning. I know it's used by people that own, that sell boats and do things that put all the boats in the spring, and they're not all Ocean Pines boats. So that would be my solution to at least help the traffic going in and out of the White Horse Park. Let's just put a gate, and if people want to buy passes, let them buy passes. But half of those people will then go to Mumford's, and then we can deal with that after the fact. Exactly. Then we'll have that complaint next year. It'd be great. On a positive note, I know the crab pier is crazy, and I don't know which way I would go with it, but I know you guys have dealt with it a lot, and we have a lot of things going on in the Pines. The drainage, which I'm very empathetic to, trust me, I've vacuumed out under my house at least 20 times this year. But on a positive note, I'm guilty of not going before, and I went this year to the memorial thing at the Memorial Center on Memorial Day on Monday. And I think we should give a big shout out to Sharon O'Hare and her group and Carol Ludwig and the Pine Tones. It was one of the most moving tributes on Memorial Day that I've ever seen. Thousands and thousands of people from Ocean Pines and all over the area were there, and really, to quote Sharon O'Hare, it's the one thing that nobody complains about in the Pines and will go on forever. So I think we need to congratulate them on a really well done job. So thank you all.
Thank you. Other public comments?
I'm Paula Gray. I live at 88 Windjammer, and contrary to the first, it's not a political statement. I'm sorry that the gentleman is not here, because one of the things that he said, and my husband and I do wish him well, he brought up something that I had never heard since I moved here, the word culture. The culture of the Pines is really, really a different atmosphere than most places. And I would like to take this time to urge the board right now to realize that in the past boards, and not this one, but the past boards, very little was done to follow up with the rules and regulations concerning the appearance or the contriteness of this place. What we need to do, and I would hope that you would pause just a little, let Josh do his fine job of getting it out to the public to explain what you're considering. Let Colby work with some people who might realize, while you're not the case you're talking about, but some of these situations might be an offset of drainage, of people's houses sinking into the mud, and put out there what you're thinking of doing, when you're thinking of doing it, and invite them to the open house or whatever you're going to have. Because the worst way to get someone to do something is to threaten to beat them with a stick. And that's what this might be. If you don't, then this. Perhaps these people don't know. A lot of people in my block, I think 70% have been there in the past 6 years. What we hear, what we think, it's all conjecture, it's rumor, it's what we got from the guy behind us, whatever. So if you might want to take that in consideration, not to set this aside, but then also to look back, that while we paid $1 million in legal fees, there was very little production in achieving what we were trying to do. So they might have had this attorney, he might have read, he might have wrote, he might have looked, he might have called at ridiculous rates an hour, but there was no production. Mr. Daly's idea of being able to do something is a great idea. But let's put out there what is expected of you. You can read it, what you see in your brochure that you get are all those items you get when you settle. But what we need to do is put out there in real time. You can't have this, you shouldn't have that. Next year, starting the 1st, this is going to be enforced. So before you're knocking on the door with something from the sheriff's office, and again, our legal fees attached to it, perhaps that you need to get an intensive information campaign to tell people what should be done. And then also there would be an opportunity for organizations, if someone's too old to do it, if someone doesn't have the funds to do it, while it might sound like a good idea to be able to sue them, it's not the option to fix their house. That's all there is. But again, back to the word culture. Thank heavens for the article the other day that we're not going to spend $300,000 to get someone else down here who doesn't even have a clue about what living here is like. You've done all of this. We've got money. Let's not do those legal fees again. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much. And please tell him that that word culture is so important, because when you come down here, it's a different world. And when you come down here, it's important to understand what's going to be expected of all of us. Have a safe day and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Yeah. My name is Frank Takash. I'm a Piedmont Circle property owner, and I'd like to thank the board for considering the Yacht Club as an excellent location for the crabbing pier. It provides parking, it provides wheelchair accessible, and it's a lower cost to complete this project. Overall, it's a win-win for the community. Also, people are very selfish. They believe their crabbing pier is in their area. They're giving the crabbing pier to another area, which the same amount of people could get to that particular crabbing pier. So it's the same situation. One person that may not go to one crabbing pier, you'll gain another one going to the other crabbing pier. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning, my name is Bill Brocky, I live at 88 Windjammer. Mr. Tuttle keeps telling us about this town hall meeting. I talked to the surveyors out there doing the survey work, and they said when they get done, the construction crew's showing up. Now, maybe our comments won't have anything, I mean, they're doing a lot of work out there for just a concept for this roundabout thing. And also, I'd like to know, how come our pools close at 6 o'clock? Anybody know the reason for that? I mean, because a lot of people in the Pines work, all right, and they don't have the option to get in the pools in the afternoon. If you get off at 4 or 5 o'clock, you can't even get to the pool. That's an amenity that half these people in the Pines probably can't even use, especially the young ones. And I asked at the last board meeting to have an estimate of what our increased insurance costs are for allowing the public to come into our pools and our other facilities in relationship to how much revenue we're generating from it. You know, is it cost effective? And another thing is that I was told that because of our nonprofit status, that we have to let the public in. Now, I don't know what kind of nonprofit status the people in Ocean City have, but I called 5 condo units to have pools. And I said, how much does it cost for me to come into your pool? They're still laughing. They said, what? And I said, well, we're a nonprofit and we have to open up our pools to the public. And they said, well, we don't have to. Now, I don't know what the difference is or whose idea that was. I keep hearing the IRS telling us this, and I can't believe the IRS is getting involved in our business unless this is a lawyer's opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning. My name is Edward Solom. I'm at 211 Teal Circle. And I'd like to address the issue of levying fines for breach of your maintenance code for individual houses. In 2017, the state of Delaware tackled this same problem. And what they did was they adopted a statewide statute that they generally referred to as remediation of urban blight. And instead of a fine levying system, they incorporated costs of remediation through the taxing authority. So what happens is, if your property in the state of Delaware is cited for code violations and you're given proper notice, you're afforded your constitutional rights of due process, and you fail to correct the cited issues within a reasonable period of time, the state of Delaware has authorized local county code enforcement offices to go in and eliminate the problem. The cost is then tacked onto your tax bill. It's not enforced through a fine and levy system. Now, if you have a fine and levy system, you're going to have to go through your local courts, and you're going to be out there with constables or whomever levying on coffee machines, lawnmowers, and stuff. But if you're putting a tax claim against the property for the cost of county or, and I'm not even sure if homeowner associations have that kind of authority, but I think it's something that warrants looking into as a way of enforcement. Now, the other nice feature about the Delaware state statute is that they can even go so far as to go in and inspect the interior of a home for purposes of fitness for human habitation. If your property is declared internally unfit for human habitation, they can padlock the house and give the homeowner an opportunity to make corrections, to make it habitable, and if not, the code allows for the demolition of the property. Now, I reflect on the comments about the 175 Teal Circle. The adjacent house is currently unfit for human habitation, but it's been that way for at least 4 or 5 years that I can see. I live on Teal Circle myself with my wife. Why isn't there some mechanism for a declaration of unfit for human habitation, due notice, and if it's not corrected, then give notice that the property is going to be demolished and exposed for public sale to defray the cost of the association that the association incurred to demolish and haul away the house. So I invite the panel to take into consideration the Delaware state statute. Was passed in 2017, went into effect 2018. It's enforced through local code enforcement units of the 3 respective counties in the state of Delaware. And it's very active in Newcastle because of the urbanization of Newcastle County, much like we have in Ocean Pines, where there are a lot of houses and we're very close together, and real estate values are impacted directly by the condition of your neighbor's property. So I have a copy of it if anybody wants to take a look at it, or you can go online and pick it up. It's easy to find, Delaware State Code Enforcement for Urban Blight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you may have to look at what the state of Maryland is doing with regard to remediation of urban blight. I'm sure Baltimore has a lot of problems like that. So there may be a state statute that covers this situation that you can access for enforcement. And you do it through the taxing authority as opposed to going to small claims court or waiting for the property to sell, like the fellow said in the light green shirt, waiting for the heirs somewhere down the road to sell it, and then you get paid from the title insurance company. But in the meantime, years can go by, and okay, there you go. Years go by, and everybody's suffering. So this is a more immediate way of attacking the problem with very, very effective means of enforcement through your tax bill. Because if you don't pay your tax bill annually, and it's with the increase of the cost of remediation, you could be subject to a tax sale, through the local county office. Now, I don't know how that might work in the state of Maryland, but it's certainly something worth looking into for purposes of more effective enforcement.
Noted.
Verify 173 Teal is the uninhabitable envelope.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
No, I was just referring to your placement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Doug, I just want to respond on the pools, as far as the pools closing at 6 o'clock. The Yacht and Rocket pool is open till 7, and the sports court pool is open till 8. Every night except Sunday, they close at 5.
Other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close down public comments, move on to the next item on our agenda. That is capital purchase requests for a recreation and parks craft building. John?
Yeah. No, we do it. The craft building.
Craft building.
Okay, hold on one second, sorry. So on the craft building, we sent out an RFP. There were four construction companies responded. We did a leveling of all we had the team that was put together do a leveling of all the bids from the construction companies. The recommendation was to go with not the lowest bidder, but Ocean Tower. There are the prerequisites and requirements that we all rated for all the construction companies, which is in the pamphlet that you received, and that was the reason why the lowest bidder, the detail is in there on why the lowest bidder was not chosen. And there's a summary in the back. Okay?
I'll entertain a motion on the recommendation from the GM to award the contract to Ocean Tower Construction. Is there a second?
So moved.
Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of awarding the craft building contract to Ocean Tower Construction based on the information presented by the GM, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, CPI violations. First item is 12 Sandpiper Lane. John? You don't have it in front of you?
Yeah, I don't have the detail on it. She had it.
Okay, I'll help you out. The first item is 12 Sandpiper Lane, a unregistered vehicle. All the information has been sent to the OPA attorney for action. I'll entertain a motion to find 12 Sandpiper Lane in continuing violation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 12 Sandpiper Lane in continuing violation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next property is 12 Starboard Court. The violation is change of color, no permit for the shed and the color of the shed. The information has been sent to the attorney for action, and there's an outstanding balance on the assessment. I'll entertain a motion to find 12 Starboard Court in continuing violation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 12 Starboard Court in continuing violation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next violation is 19 Duxbury Lane. The violation is propane or lack of propane tank screening. Information has been sent to the attorney. I'll entertain a motion to find 19 Duxbury in continuing violation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Frank?
I just want everybody to pay attention to two things. Number one, the dates on these started 2/26/19. We're sitting here as a board talking about this on 6/1/19, and I want you to all remember these words because it's going to come up in a discussion in a few minutes. Sent to our attorney. That's it.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 19 Duxbury in continuing violation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And the next property on the agenda is 1435 Ocean Parkway. The violation is property maintenance and general prohibitions and requirements of declarations and restrictions for Section 17. The OPA attorney has been sent information on this matter. I'll entertain a motion to find 1435 Ocean Parkway in continuing violation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 1435 Ocean Parkway in continuing violation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, unfinished business. The first item on unfinished business is a second reading of Resolution F03. Frank.
Yes, let me just find that here a second. Okay. Second reading to Resolution F03. Attached is Resolution F03. The Bylaws and Resolutions Committee relayed their suggested changes after the first readings at the 12/1/2018 board meeting. These changes have been reflected in the attachment, thus is ready for the second reading. In the second reading, rather than go through this three-page document, I'll just go through the changes. Item number 3, there's a fourth item added after. It says for bulkhead maintenance and replacement of plan schedule be developed separately for OPA-owned bulkheads and privately owned bulkheads. On the next page, the change is the red line in what is taken out is the following. The current reading is established unless approved by a 2/3 majority vote. That is being scratched out of the entire board. In accordance with the association bylaws is being added. That's the second reading for that.
Any questions on the second reading? Further discussion? Given that it's a second reading, we have the option of making a motion to accept the changes to Resolution F03 because we have met the requirement for second reading. So unless there are any other questions, I will entertain a motion to accept the changes to Resolution F03 as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the changes to Resolution F03 based on the second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, second reading for Resolution F04. Frank.
Okay. Attached is the Resolution F04. The Bylaws and Resolution Committee relayed their suggested changes to this after the first readings at the 12/1/2018 board meeting. These changes have been reflected in the attachment, thus are ready for the second reading. Let me just read the additions and the deletions to you. Authority, the association's declarations of restrictions and articles of restatement cite actions that the Board of Directors is authorized to take for the collection of delinquent annual charges, assessments, including the establishment of the annual rate of interest to be assessed on unpaid charges from the date of delinquency. Okay? What is being deleted is Section A. The wording of our declarations will vary, but all contain provisions that allow the association to collect interest from the date of delinquency on unpaid charges, to publish names of delinquent members, to file a lien which shall encumber the lot for lot or lots, and to foreclose by equitable foreclosure at any time within 3 years after the date on which the notice therefore shall be filed. That is being scratched. B, under the articles of restatement is being also scratched. It says, states in part to levy an annual charge upon the members of the association, to publish the names of the members who shall fail to pay charges made by the association, to sue to collect any charge, such charges not paid, to impose a lien against any real estate in the subdivision that is owned by a delinquent member of the association for any such charge as is not paid when due, and to foreclose any such lien. Article 7 states in part, the board of directors of the association will have the right to suspend the voting rights, if any, and the right to use the parks, roads, and other recreational facilities and amenities of the association of any members or any lieutenant or guest of any member for any period during which the association charge owed by the voting member or associated member remains unpaid. That is scratched. What is being added under 3 policy is a letter sent notifying number of delinquency for the request for payment, which will include interest calculated at an annual rate established each year by the board of directors.
All right, any questions regarding the second reading? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the changes to F04 as a second reading.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just had
Colette?
one comment. This may go without saying, but under 3B, during subsequent years of delinquency, talks about a decision based on recommendation from the review conducted during March of each year. That maybe goes without saying that that decision will be made by the board. I think we ought to add that wording, that it's going to be made by the board, just so that it's perfectly clear that it's the board, not the review committee or some other entity making that decision.
Yeah, interesting. Any other interesting point? I think by inference, if you look at 3A1, that it's established by each year by the board of directors, it infers that that's the governing body. I don't think there's any harm in adding it. However, I don't know necessarily that it's absolutely required. I'll look for some opinions.
I'm perfectly fine either way.
Colette, are you suggesting adding that wording?
Yeah, I'd like to add it just because people tend to read pieces, not the whole, sometimes when they're interpreting these things.
So under 3B, the sentence would read, the sentence currently reads, this decision shall be based on the recommendation from the review conducted during March of each year. How would you change that? What's your
This decision shall be made by the board based on the recommendation, so on and so
Okay,
forth.
so you're just adding the words by the board of directors
That's
in
right.
between based and on. Okay. Everybody okay with that? All right, any other questions regarding that change? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of Resolution F04 with the noted change from this second reading discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Colette, please note the change in the wording of that document before we publish it, so that when we go to authorize it, it has that change in there. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, we're finished unfinished business. We'll move into new business. The first motion is a revised motion based on the discussion we had at the beginning of the meeting when we were approving the agenda. So therefore, what you see up on the screen is not the motion as stated. So please, Frank, if you would, read the revised motion. And I don't know if everybody has we have copies up here. If you need one, we certainly provide that for you. But Frank, please.
Okay. This is the revised motion. To initiate a two-step process to place a referendum question to all homeowners to permit the Ocean Pines Association to levy fines for violation of the Declaration of Restrictions. Phase 1 of this motion will authorize the board and general manager to work with legal counsel to develop a referendum question that incorporates the violations that will be subject to fines, the violation correction period, the fine schedule, the collection of legal fees, due process and appeal requirements, and to move to referendum upon the approval with a positive vote in Phase 2. Phase 2 of the process will be the formal approval of the referendum question at the July board meeting. The purpose and effect is to enhance the ability of the association to improve and maintain homeowner value and safety by levying fines for violations of the Declaration of Restrictions. Background. Currently, the association is limited in its ability to enforce the Declaration of Restrictions. The existing process is time-consuming, expensive, and ineffective. Documented violations can extend for long periods of time. Legal fees incurred to enforce the Declaration of Restrictions cannot be recouped under the current Declaration of Restrictions and can run into thousands of dollars. The ability to fine for violations will result in faster, more effective enforcement of declarations. See the attached recommendation from the Architectural Review Committee.
Is there a second? All right, discussion.
Okay, may I start?
Please.
Okay, first, let me just read the opening paragraph of I'll read the whole letter from the Architectural Review Committee. It's addressed to me. The Architectural Review Committee, ARC, supports your intention to put forth a motion to initiate a system of fines to be levied against homeowners who do not respond to notices of the existence of a violation on their property. There are instances of property owners who ignore many notices they receive and refuse to comply. ARC feels there is no meaningful recourse to effectively manage the situation to be able to force compliance, particularly during the period before a case is referred to the board. Violations need to be more vigorously enforced. The current process involves an initial notification sent by regular mail to homeowner's permanent address that establishes a 14-day grace period to correct the violation or apply for a variance or exception. No response leads to a second letter that is sent by registered mail with a 10-day grace period that escalates the level of urgency. A third letter is sent registered mail from ARC and notifies the homeowner that the case is being referred to the board for disposition that will possibly include referral to the association's legal counsel, which can take another 30 days depending on timing. ARC feels that if a case is referred to legal counsel, the homeowner should be required to pay the legal fees. The non-payment of fines and legal fees should be treated in the same manner as non-payment of annual OPA property assessments. That's the letter from ARC. If I can, and certainly I understand the sensitivity of this topic. Look, I lived in Columbia for 12 years. Okay, if you want to talk about a semi-police state, talk about Columbia. Okay, those of you that are familiar, I see smiles. Okay, get a knock on your door that the door's the damn wrong color. Okay, but here's some facts that I think you should have, because already we're starting to see elements of fear-mongering, and false rhetoric from certain portions of the media, let's be blunt. Okay, point number one. The former general manager, John Bailey, conducted a community-wide survey in 2018. The survey asked the following question: would you support a referendum to provide for better enforcement of the covenants and regulations, including the possibility of limited and capped fines through due process? Pretty straightforward question, and I think it's pretty unambiguous. Here are the tabulated responses. 1,158 people voted yes. 538 said no. A 68 to 32% swing in favor of it, a 2-to-1 margin. Point number two that I want to specifically address, because that was one of the reasons that I put it on my list. It's something to do. Over 1,000 people asked us to consider it. Our obligation of a board is to consider it when 1,000 people ask us to do something. Point number two, very specifically to Ms. Sika, or to Lynn. During the board meeting conducted on 4/6, a homeowner adjacent to 54 Bramblewood approached Mr. Parks very politely and quietly requested to speak first during public comments. As I recall the conversation, she indicated that to address the board, she had to leave work and was under time constraint to return to her job. Her comment regarding the property was this, and I quote, "This is the view I wake up and have seen every day for years." Let's look at how effective the current tools to enforce compliance have worked in this situation. And I will tell you, when she said that, I looked at the pictures, and here's my thought. I would tolerate living next to that garbage pit 7 minutes, before all hell would break loose in the Pines. Okay? 12/26/2018, an initial inspection. 1/26/2018, first letter sent regular mail. 2/1/19, follow-up inspection completed, second letter sent. 2/11/19, violation forwarded to ARC. 4/6/19, addressed at the Board of Directors meeting. 5/4/19, motion to find odor and continuing violation and have Public Works enter the lot to remove and get a court order to enter the lot to remove the trash and assess the owner the cost. Okay? You have heard that we have strong, effective tools at our disposal. Okay? So here, we've waited from 12/26/18 to 5/4/19 to get a court order. Now, somebody will say, we have a fast track and we could have bypassed that. And I sat here on the board, and I've sat where you sat in the audience figuring, why have in the time I've lived in this community, 4 general managers, and I'll temporarily exclude John because he's new at it, not used fast track? And I'll tell you why they don't use fast track in a minute. Because fast track puts you on the train, that famous train that leads to nowhere. Okay? Let's talk about the effectiveness of the current procedures and the cost to put them in. First, in terms of our current procedures in the system, it works fine. 98% of the cases, things are resolved within 30 days, no problems. As of yesterday, there are 26 open cases of unresolved violations between what is currently active with the ARC committee and what has been sent to the attorney. So the idea that somebody's going to walk up and fine you for a minor violation is pure, unadulterated fear-mongering. The ARC committee is interested in one thing, and I'm interested in one thing. That's the egregious violations that go on for years that detract from homeowner value. Okay? The subjects are property maintenance, debris, unregistered or junk cars, additions, alterations without permits, such as fences, porches, sheds, one dock, house color changes, and oversized vehicles and trailers. Initial inspection dates go back as far as January 2017. There are currently 2 repeat violators with notices off and on going back to 2007 for one and 2014 for the other. As far as I can figure, that's 12 years and 5 years. I think that's a little too patient. There is one case that has been referred to the board where the homeowner is absolutely refusing to comply until he is basically arrested. Those are the violations that are being targeted and will be targeted. Now, we've heard some things, and I'm sure you've heard some things that says the declaration of restrictions give us some strong, powerful tools, okay? So I asked some specific questions to our counsel regarding things like timing and cost, okay? The declarations of restrictions, so you're all familiar, only authorize OPA to seek the recovery if attorney's fees for collection actions, but not to enforce other restrictions of the declaration or OPA governing documents. So let me make this perfectly clear to everybody here. When I said and when I read in here, it's being sent to the attorney for action, the cost of that is not recoverable to the association. It goes directly against the operating budget. It goes directly against the assessment that you will be paying next year. So when you hear the next numbers of what these things cost, divide any of those numbers you choose to accept by 8,452, and that's the cost that you're going to pay to clean up one of these derelict properties. Okay? So next question. We just got a court order to go clean up the property on Bramblewood. Any estimate on how much that will cost OP? The following response from the attorney. The cost to obtain an injunction can range from $5,000 to $50,000. I know this is a huge range. These types of complaints are filed in circuit court, and that means discovery and motion practice is permitted. If the owner hires a lawyer and chooses to fight hard, including issuing discovery, taking depositions, filing motions and after motions, then the cost of the litigation can spiral. If the cases are not really contested, our legal fees will be at the lower range. These cases are generally straightforward, but litigation is unpredictable. The average cost every time we sit up here and send something to the attorney costs between $12,000 and $18,000, and those numbers are unrecoverable. So divide it by 8,452, and that's how much you pay every time we go through this circle that talks about CPI violations potentially. Timeliness, okay? To get a quarter from the county, what is required in terms of time and effort? As I understand, in addition to the time to write and request for the order, you may have to actually appear in court. I'm trying to point out how cumbersome and costly the current system is, and the fact that under current DRs, the legal fees are not recoverable. Here's the response from the attorney. We have to file a complaint seeking injunctive relief. I have attached one we just filed for another client. This client is entitled to its legal fees. We would then have to attend a pretrial conference and trial. We may also file a motion for summary judgment. The process can take 6 months or longer depending on the court docket. There is a mechanism to obtain what is called a preliminary injunction, but these cases are difficult, and you must show the court does not, you must show the court that it does not cause irreparable harm to OPA to do so. So that what their comment is, the failure to maintain a lot or parking of a trailer will likely not consist of irreparable harm. So under the fastest of circumstances, using the most robust tools available to us, cutting out all the red tape, it would take us, we could go right to injunction, which would cost you $12,000 to $18,000 and could take up to 6 months. And quite frankly, I think the fine system is better. But there are certain issues that have been raised as a result of the motion that are really quite forward and honestly require discussion, like what will be fined, what the fines will be, what the due process will be, and that's the reason for a two-step motion. But one thing I want everybody to be clear of, whether we go one way or the other on this thing in terms of acceptance, whether it goes to referendum and passes or not, when somebody tells you that the board and the management has robust, strong, effective tools, you are simply not being given factual information.
Other comments? I have a couple. So Frank and I had a discussion on this several times, and I like the concept. What I'm struggling with is the detail. Conceptually, being able to have a little bit more authority to carry out certain actions in order to make sure that said property is in alignment and in compliance with the declarations of restrictions as stated, gives us an opportunity to move a little bit quicker on this. Case in point, I think I heard it's been, several years now since, that has happened. So my concern is that, and the reason I'm a little bit on sort of the fence on this one is that I don't have that level of detail. It's great to say, yeah, we're going to fine. Fine for what? Okay? Here's some background information. I think part of this personal opinion, part of the ineffectiveness of the current process is the fear that if you as an OPA staff person goes onto someone's property, you're liable, you're at risk, okay? The declarations of restrictions clearly state that that a staff member from OPA as directed by the board can go onto a property and clean things up. The problem is that may happen, no. The problem is that you can't remove anything from the property, okay? We've contacted our attorney. There's a big difference in cleaning up a pile of leaves versus moving a vehicle that's unregistered out of a driveway. There's a big difference between taking some tree limbs and putting them out to the curb versus taking a shed and tearing it down, all right? So there's been a real distinction between what you can do with regard to what the current declarations of restriction state and what you can't do from a legal perspective. The other problem I see is the court order, all right? Now, if we go through, as Frank had mentioned, if we go through getting a court order, every time we have to go through this process, obviously, that is not cost-effective in the long run, okay? I'm not comfortable with strapping the membership with that cost. My preference is to look for another method that could potentially yield some results. Frank, I think you made one mistake, unless I misunderstood it. You said every time it gets sent to the attorney for review, it's a court order. No, that's not the case.
Only when we get a court order.
Right. So anytime it gets, in our current process, it gets sent to the attorney, it's at the regular attorney rate for reviewing these kinds of things. But, the court order, as, as Frank had mentioned, is a variable. It's a wild card. And we really don't know what impact that'll have until obviously we get the real numbers. So my concern, and this is to my colleagues here, is that, while I agree in concept, maybe, and I'm thinking while I'm talking, maybe, we go through this first phase to see what it yields. We're not creating a referendum yet. I think in my mind, and I definitely want some feedback, is that this allows us to investigate the possibility, get some level of detail. Frank, when you and I chatted, one of the other things we thought about was, why don't we get a group of association members and have a meeting on this, okay? Bring it out to the association, go, guys, we've gone through this first concept phase of saying, we really do need to do something with regard to enhancing, the ability to take action when these conditions exist. So maybe, and I'm starting to convince myself, maybe the idea of passing this motion right now with the caveat knowing that we've got a couple of other homework assignments. One would be obviously to look at the fee structure, some of the other details associated with the applicability of, a change to the DR, and obviously community input, all right? Because I think you're going to get a lot of different perspectives. One from 56 Bramblewood? 56. Okay, so you've got those. I've got folks across the street from me that I've been here, 11 years? I've seen them 4 times. Nobody ever lives in that house, and it's a pile of pine needles and trees and stuff like that. I go over and clean stuff up here every now and then, but I can understand people are going to get different perspectives, so I'm very much interested in getting the community feedback on this because, let's face it, it's our law, okay? It's not the board's law. It's ours. We have to all be buying into the idea that we believe that this is the right way to go because it's practical and it's sustainable, all right? And it's not cost prohibitive. So from my perspective, I think I'm generally in favor only because we're only taking the first step. Now, whether or not the second step yields something that I would be interested in supporting, that remains to be seen. So anyway, that's my thought. Colette?
Yeah, I agree with this conceptually as well, but I have a little bit of difficulty with a motion that has 2 phases. I would rather that we have a motion that addresses phase 1, and then once that is, including community input, I agree with Doug's comment, and certainly the comments we heard today, there are a lot of great ideas and different perspectives out there among the membership on this topic. But I would like it to be a motion, if a friendly amendment could be offered, that the motion be for basically the phase 1 portion only, and then let that group bring a motion for a second phase at another point. But the way I read this, it seems to obligate us to both phases, and I'm just a little uncomfortable with that. So if a friendly amendment would be offered, I would say authorize the board and general manager to work with community members and legal counsel to develop a referendum question that spells out blah, 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 and then delete every reference to phase 2. But that's just my one director's thought.
Other comments?
Yeah, I've got a few comments. I totally support the concept of putting more teeth in some sort of enforcement system that can correct the problem we're facing. I did go back and read the DR for my section where I live, and it clearly authorizes the association or its agents to go onto the property, and it says to repair, maintain, restore the lot and the exterior of the buildings and any other improvements erected thereon. To me, that means if there is a pile of trash on the property to take care of that property, you can remove that trash. Okay? So I think we have the teeth already. I think the problem is we're not doing it. We're not following through on the steps that need to be done, and we're just taking way too long. I think I would really love to see us take a step back, have a committee or a group of citizens, residents, to really look at this in more detail and find out how can we expedite this process so that we don't have it taking 6, 7, 8 years. I don't think just jumping to a fine system is going to be the way to solve this problem.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on this. In the park, I was the president of the park, HOA, and we do have a fine system. Lucky for us, our homes are newer. We pay $205 a month assessment for all our landscaping to be done. That's not the case in the rest of the Ocean Pines. And I think that you should have another means to enforce these rules. But I'd finally say that I hope that you push this out into the future, simply because you're short a board member. You've got 2 short-term board members, and I would hope that any decision to be made, other than getting the referendum, would be done after the election when you have a full board of 7 board members to tackle it. That's my view.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly willing, let me go back a second and say, the reason for the 2 phases is there are certainly issues that have been raised as a result of this motion that are valid issues. I mean, if I would tell any one of you sitting out there, if our roles were reversed, I would have some questions on it. One thing that we don't I don't want, as a matter of fact, is to fine anybody. And I sure don't want anybody to ever get fined for their grass being a ½ inch taller than it's supposed to be, or somebody having a paper in their driveway, or somebody having a garbage can in front of their garage door. Okay, only egregious violations. So I think it has to be thought out, and one of the points that Doug made to me is, so if we pass this and we developed a fine schedule for what we'd call egregious violations, and they would really be egregious, like they're dealing with on Bramblewood, disabled cars in a driveway. What's to keep a board 5 years from now from passing one that says the grass is too tall? So we want to codify everything and make sure that anytime we ask you to vote yes or no on something, that you know exactly what you're voting for, exactly the process of enforcement, exactly the process of appeal. Okay? So I'm all in favor of that. And I really have no objection to going to phase 1 and then going to phase 2 later, provided that it's something that we don't drag out for years. Okay? I would certainly accept what Tom has said with the idea that we develop this question by the August meeting, so that when a new board sits down, that it's ready to vote on whether or not it's ready to go to you as at a referendum. But I don't want to have it open-ended so that a year from now, we're still talking about it. Because one of the things, quite frankly, guys, that we've faced is there's just too much stuff kicked down the road because it's tough to address. Okay? And that's what I don't want to see happen. So if we put a time fence on it, I'd go as far out as August. I'm okay with only having 1 phase as a friendly amendment. But let's address the issue, and let's either say we're going to live with the situation that we have, giving everybody factual information so they can make a good decision, or we're going to change the system to make it more effective.
Thanks, Frank. The notion of a friendly amendment, I'm trying to look at the practicality of a couple of different approaches. One, you could withdraw the motion and then redo it next month and align it to a time frame. The second would be to accept a friendly amendment and use the time from now until August, to schedule a meeting, have a couple of interactive sessions with the membership and gather more information. That's another option. I can't really say which one would be more beneficial, but certainly, and then there's nothing saying that if we postpone the motion today, that we can't start those interactive discussions at any point in time, now that the public has been made aware of the fact that we're looking at this, and maybe that's the stimulation needed to, to start those kinds of discussions. I'm open to anything that would be practical.
To me, Doug, it sounds like we can kill everything, all birds with one stone, by just changing something and say, phase 2 of this process will be the formal presentation to the board for approval at the September board meeting. The new board seated. We've had then the summer to discuss and debate it, work with our attorneys to craft things, hold a town hall meeting, and get our ducks in a row to see whether at that point in time the board wants to proceed with it or whether the board wants to proceed with the current procedures.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind would be, I don't want to be presumptuous that we automatically assume that after the discussions we'll have something to present. Okay, I mean, that's one of the possibilities is we have this interactive discussion and we realize that based on all the input that it's not really practical to move forward and we can currently enhance the current environment. If I would be comfortable with just saying, let's just do phase 1, all right, with no presupposition that we're going to do something in phase 2 unless it materializes, in which case you could take the action at that point.
That would work too.
That sound reasonable?
Let's put a close date on phase 1 of August.
Yeah, in other words, some parameter out there that says, because the objective is to get the new sitting board, up to speed on the issue, share their opinions, and then figure out where we go from there. So I guess the protocol would, the friendly amendment would be to basically what you were saying.
Strike phase 2.
Strike everything and just take the first.
Strike phase 2, and at the end, the due process, and to move to, let's see, what I would do is just at the end there to have the referendum question presented to the new board in September.
Can I read this?
Well, first of all, I have to say this publicly. I assume you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes,
okay,
definitely.
So we're clear with that.
So the friendly amendment could read, let me propose this. We're going to strike phase 1. We're just going to.
No, strike phase 2.
Okay.
Phase 2.
Phase 1 of this motion will authorize the board and.
Can I make it real quick point of order? Forget phase 1. Just say,
Yeah, that's what I.
this motion will authorize. Don't say phase 1 of this motion. Just say
Yeah.
this motion.
This motion will authorize the board and general manager to solicit input from the membership and work with legal counsel to develop a referendum question that incorporates the violations that will be subject to fines, violation correction period, fine schedule, collection of legal fees, due process, and appeal requirements.
By September 1st.
By September 1st.
Okay. Is there a second to that friendly amendment?
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion on the friendly amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the friendly amendment as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, now we'll move to the original motion. So the original motion as amended by the friendly amendment. Any further discussion on the original motion?
Yeah, I have a couple more thoughts I'd like to share. I guess my struggle with this partly is that the way it's written now, it basically says we will go to a referendum after this process takes place.
Not in a friendly amendment.
No, the friendly amendment eliminates that.
I thought we were talking about the main motion.
Yeah, the friendly amendment has eliminated that, so it's basically been rewritten.
Okay, so we're not saying there's going to be a referendum.
Right,
We're just going to
right.
say we're going to study this and come up with a solution.
And the new board sitting September 1st will have this question before them, whether they want to put that question.
Whether they want to have a referendum.
Right.
Okay.
The referendum is
good.
optional. It's going to, it's basically preparing them for that.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Now, my other comment is, I haven't had a chance to sit with ARC to understand some of the issues they faced, and so that part of the research I need to do personally. But a thought I had was, if my sense is, from talking with public works people and all of that, part of the struggle has been fear on their part to go on property and take any action. I was just told that last week, in fact, and I think there was some misunderstanding between them and the police department as to what they could and could not do. So I think that needs to get clarified. But if, I listened to Colby, and she talks about 136 work orders, and they were able to get 67 of them done. Frankly, I would rather hire a staff person if we have to get out there and get these things done, rather than paying lawyers to do it. We have the authority in our DRs to take some of these actions. To me, rather than keep sending money to legal people, I'd rather have somebody on staff that gets out on the street and gets the job done.
Other discussion?
Yeah, no disagreement on that, but one of the things that this discussion has brought out, okay, and it came up yesterday, and that's one of the reasons for the revised motion. Apparently, and I will say apparently because I haven't checked this out with our legal counsel, any section built since 1995 already has in the Declaration of Restrictions the ability to fine. Okay? Sections before that don't. And there's 22 different sections, 22 different declarations of restrictions, 22 different sets of operating rules that we have to find something that consistently works across. And in the end, this has to be approved by section, so there could be sections where it's approved and sections where it's not approved. But my point in addressing it is this. I mean, I don't need to do a lot of research more than what I saw yesterday on Bramblewood, okay, that we have to do something. The current systems clearly aren't working. And whether it's because we're not doing something on the management end or whether it's not doing something on this end, but some of the systems, I mean, look, if I were sitting where John was sitting and somebody had a property and you're dealing with us and we're complaining about legal fees and we're complaining about budget, and I'm saying, okay, rush to get a court order that could cost $50,000, if I'm in his chair, I'm gonna say, hell no. And that's exactly what we're up against, and here's what it results in. How many years? 11 years sitting next to this property. Let's face it, if I could do it, I'd nuke the damn thing.
Colette.
The other thing that I'm still uncertain about, granted that we do have the power in our DRs to go onto property and clean up trash and remove trash. Some of what we might describe as trash might be defined by the homeowner as an asset. An unregistered car, an unregistered trailer, a shed that's the wrong color, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm really uncomfortable with that, and I think we need to get the legality of that resolved.
Right. We have to be careful when we remove something, like Colette said, and if you look in the bylaws or whatever, it says go in to clean it. It does not say about removing. So that's a situation right there.
So I'm comfortable with going, let's form the right question, let's get the right input. There are people that, look, there's 1,100 and some odd people that want to do this, and there's 500 opposed. Let's get both sides. Let's understand the fears. Let's put in the safeguards to do this thing correctly and effectively, but then let's don't kick it down the road. Let's say we're either going to do something or we're going to live with the system we have.
Other comments? Yeah, I'm of the opinion that there's no harm in taking the first step, which would prompt us and direct us to get information and get membership involved. And that's why I would support the motion as rewritten by the friendly amendment. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the original motion as amended by the friendly amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. All right, the amended motion carries. I'm sorry, next item on the agenda is a motion by Frank regarding the controlled distribution of the forensic audit. Frank?
Yeah, let me dig that out to read it here to y'all. Bear with me a second. Okay, motion, the topic is the distribution of the forensic audit. Motion to make arrangements for a controlled distribution of the complete forensic audit without redactions to all assessment recipients beginning June 17, 2019. The purpose and effect, to assure that all homeowners have complete and easy access to the forensic audit in compliance with the Maryland Homeowners Association Act. Background. The former acting general manager, Brett Hill, made accusations of widespread theft, corruption, and fraud within the management ranks of the association. These accusations resulted in the board authorizing a forensic audit of the food and beverage operation as well as the Public Works Department. This audit, costing the association in the range of $200,000, has been completed, reviewed, accepted, and is now ready for distribution. Given the extreme seriousness of the allegations, the findings of this audit should be made available to all homeowners as quickly and conveniently as possible. I am proposing that we send a bounce-back card to all homeowners listed in our assessment database by June 7, 2019, giving them 3 choices for receiving the report. Number 1, picking up a printed copy at the administration building. Identification will be required. Number 2, having a printed copy mailed to them at an address specified on the return bounce-back card. Number 3, having a PDF copy emailed to them at an address specified on the bounce-back card. The report will be made available to homeowners beginning June 17, 2019. After August 30, 2019, reports will only be available by written request to the association. Copies of the forensic audit will not be posted on the Ocean Pines website.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Okay, start. Look, the audit's done. It's cost $200,000 for the better part of 2 years. Everybody in this association, from the board on down, has operated under the sphere or under a cloud of suspicion, of theft, corruption, and wrongdoing. The purpose of a forensic audit is to determine whether or not a crime has been committed. If crimes have been committed, who did it, when, how, where, possibly why. It's done. It's time for you to read it. I want you to read it. I don't want one sentence redacted. I don't want one name redacted. I want one word redacted. Because the most important thing that you have is faith and trust that when you give us money, that from the time of collection to the time of disbursement, it is being handled properly and efficiently and to your best interests.
I'd like to, listen, I'm not in favor of the bounce-back card. I think it's a waste of money. It'll wind up in a recycle bin. What I'd like to do is propose a different pathway to get this out to the public, and that is, and I've written it up as a friendly amendment, and let me just read it, and then we can discuss it. Have the staff print a minimum of 25 copies of the forensic report for pickup by the members at no cost, starting on June 5th. That's Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So you can go to the admin building and pick it up. Copies can be mailed to members upon written or email request. We've controlled the report. We already stated it's not going to go on the internet. That's not proper, but we are complying with the Maryland Homeowners Act by providing a copy of those reports to them. So that's what I'd like to change it to.
I'm perfectly acceptable, amenable to accepting that.
Okay.
All right, so Colette, for sake of recording, would you please, Tom, would you please read the friendly amendment again so that we can record it properly?
Or I can just hand it to Colette.
Just hand it.
I wrote it here.
All right, More discussion. I have a comment. One is, and Frank and I have already talked about this, I'm not in favor of doing anything out of the ordinary. I strive for consistency. You know, my argument would be when we signed a contract with Mertec for the bulkheads, did we provide a special mailing to everybody? When we hired a general manager 2 years ago and had his contract, did we send something out to everybody? There's a mechanism in place, okay, that both from an OPA perspective and a Maryland HOA perspective, that if you want information, you request it and it's provided to you. I think this, and at the risk of diminishing the importance of the forensic audit, I treat it as just another one of the documents that's collateral for this organization. And if you want the information, please request it. It's that simple. I'm not in favor of creating something special just for this particular document because we are setting a precedent. You know. Oh, by the way, every time you sign, some member could come and say, well, you know what? Every time somebody puts pen to paper and signs a contract, I want a copy mailed to me. All right? And so I think we're setting a precedent that just doesn't need to be set. Okay. I also look at, you know, the voting turnout for the past several years. We've not crossed the 4,000 vote barrier in the past several years. All right? So one could surmise that half the people that are members in here, not really don't care, but just it's not their, you know, immediate interest, okay, of having the information. All right? So I don't think that there's any kind of perception that we're not trying to provide the information to everybody. It's just that I just strongly believe that we should remain consistent in how we handle the distribution of documents and how we comply with Maryland HOA law. Anybody else?
I just want to add, just for the record, so people understand, the forensic audit was provided to the board. The board reviewed it. The board then authorized the auditing company to go ahead and publish the final copy. The board made absolutely no changes in any aspect of the forensic audit. It is completely, as it will be published, it's completely unredacted. So I just want people to understand that the board has not touched it in any way, made no comments. So you will get exactly what everyone else on the board has seen.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. Thank you, Steve. So tie back to the electronic vote that we mentioned earlier in the meeting, and that was the electronic vote, meaning that Gross Mendelson sent us their draft. We looked at it and said, okay, those are the things. And so we just formalized it by accepting the draft as the final copy, and that authorized them to send us the final copy that was changed. And I also say, if it wasn't noticed by my statement, I don't believe in, you know, any kind of redaction. The report needs to be published in full as it's been presented to us.
One other
Frank.
comment. If I can make it so that everybody clearly understands. Because of the nature of this audit and what it's intended to do and what it has successfully done, we have to walk a very fine line. And the very fine line is this. As a homeowner that pays an assessment, you are entitled to that report under the Maryland HOA Act. But because it identifies exactly what I told you it did, we cannot distribute it widely and just throw it on the internet or send a copy to somebody down in South Carolina without incurring some legal risk on the part of the association. And that's exactly the reason for the controlled distribution. I think that unanimously for us sitting on the board, if we could, we'd hand carry a copy to each one of you, okay? It's just how we get it to you, fast, easy, for you to read.
Any further discussion on the friendly amendment? All right, so please read the friendly amendment one more time.
To direct the general manager to have staff print a minimum of 25 copies of the forensic audit report for pickup by members at no cost starting on Wednesday, June 5th, and for copies to be mailed to members upon written or email request.
All right. And seeing no more discussion, I'll call the question on the friendly amendment. All those in favor of the friendly amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, now we'll move back to the original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion as amended by the friendly amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the original motion as amended by the friendly amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a discussion on permitting issues. Frank?
Let me get my computer fired up here a second. Yeah, okay. This is the topic is permitting issues with Worcester County. The concise statement is the Architectural Review Committee has requested that the board discuss, bring to the attention of the GM, and resolve with Worcester County certain permitting issues. According to the ARC, the county has issued building permits to residents of Ocean Pines for certain construction projects that have been in violation of the applicable Ocean Pines Declaration of Restrictions. Background, the ARC Committee made me aware of the situation at a recent meeting. I'm requesting that the GM review this situation with Public Works in the county to see what can be done to prevent this from happening in the future.
Yeah, Frank, good point. Really, what it boils down to, I guess, is just to make sure that there's probably maybe a better line of communication between ARC and the county, or our administration in the county, and certainly would look for ideas to open some sort of dialogue, between the folks that are currently on the ARC and get their input on, on what can be done. Clearly, whether it's administrative oversight, whether it's just, lack of engagement, it could be any one of those things. But I think it would be healthy to just start a dialogue with those folks and just maybe tap them on the shoulder and remind them, hey, maybe we want to relook at this, and let me get your thoughts on the way things are currently being done and maybe any possible enhancements to that.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to. This doesn't seem to be something that happens an enormous number of times, okay? But when it happens, here's what it creates a situation. As a homeowner, let's say, take it in what I consider the most serious of all cases. The homeowner goes to the county and gets a permit to add an extension onto their house that violates our Declaration of Restrictions. So you have somebody put the extension on the house with a county permit that violates the OPDRs, and then we go in, and if we try to enforce the Declaration of Restrictions, the homeowner properly says, well, we got a permit from the county, so we should be good. And the system's not really set up that way, and it seems that they have set rules, we have set rules, and we cooperate well together, so it seems like a communication issue, but one that when it comes up can be contentious. And I think we need to address it on that basis.
I'm all for addressing it. I guess my question is more, only because I put a deck on the back of my house, I had to go to Public Works to get a permit from OPA. I had to go to the county to get a permit from the county. Both authorities had the ability to say no, so I'm not sure why there's a problem. I mean, OPA gets to look at every permit that the county's going to issue. Okay.
Apparently, there have been situations where the person wanting to do exactly what you did would go directly to the county and get the permit, but maybe what they wanted to do violated the OP Declaration of Restrictions.
So they just didn't go to OPA.
They didn't go to OPA, but they got the county permit.
So why don't we do this, rather than carrying it on for a long period of time? The board liaison to ARC is Jeff. However, given his current condition, maybe we just ask that, John, no, I'm not going to do this because it's a board committee. Certainly, someone can step up. Tom, can I volunteer you to talk to? How's that? Just reach out to the ARC committee, all right, and just ask them bring this issue up with them, ask them for some feedback, and then let's determine if there's any actions we can take to try and straighten that out. Just open up a dialogue with them.
Sure, and of course, Lisa Schwartz lives in the park, and I know her, and
Okay.
her
Even
husband
better.
very well. They're actually in Europe right now, I believe.
Okay.
So.
All right, very good.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the topic? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move to the next item. Next item on the agenda is a motion to direct the GM to put out an RFP for compensation study. Colette?
Yeah, the motion is to direct the interim general manager to put out an RFP to solicit bids for a compensation study. Purpose and effect to identify potential vendors to conduct a compensation study that analyzes OPA's pay and benefit offerings relative to the marketplace, offers recommendations regarding any adjustments justified by the findings, and offers recommendations regarding implementation of adjustments in benefits and pay going forward. Background: OPA has received 2 pay studies, one conducted internally and one conducted by an outside firm that looked at pay only. During the past 2 budget cycles, the board approved changes in benefit structure affecting employee contributions to health care coverage and employer contributions to 501k plans, with both 401k plans, With both of those changes, the board acknowledged the need to secure information about the competitiveness of our compensation package, both pay and benefits, in the marketplace, and to determine what adjustments may be needed. This motion is intended to address that need. The current year's budget contains funds to secure a compensation study, and I will add that time is of the essence in this, in terms of the amount of time it would take to complete the process of RFP bid solicitation, leveling bids, and the process that takes us to having final recommendations in time for them to be useful for budgeting in September.
Right.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
All I'd like to say is that the TGM group, the SCH group, and PKS do these, and I would like to point out that some of these companies are not on the Eastern Shore, and it sure would be great for us to, in the selection, for a company that understands our culture.
And I would respond to that. In the process of getting to the point of making this motion, I did interview a number of companies that do this type of work, and it was indicated that there are a number of companies that do have databases that include the Eastern Shore, if that's what you're concerned about. I understand having the business here is maybe has a different cultural sensitivity than having a database that reflects this. But I think it would be great for us to have the database. If we could have both, that would be ideal, but I'm not sure we're going to get both.
All right, I've got a question for John. How many exempt and non-exempt employees do we have? I mean,
Just off the top of my head, the exempt somewhere would be around 50 or 70.
Out of the what?
It's probably 70 without counting it.
Out of the 300?
Right, the 70, right, the 300 is like the max at the very busiest of time.
Okay.
So a lot of that, I don't have the numbers in front of me, I have it on my desk, but, maybe 70 of that is, seasonal. We have some part-time or whatever. But the answer to your question is probably around 70.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just want to make sure I clarify, just your idea, Tom, was to make sure that we didn't limit the number of people or the number of firms that we sent the RFP to firms across the bridge. We wanted to make sure we included an inventory of firms that were here locally. Is that what I heard you say?
That's what you heard me say.
Very good.
And one of the reasons for that, it goes back to replacement reserve studies. And that is, what I found out is that the economic life of some of the things on the Eastern Shore are different because of the conditions, the salt. And some of these companies that will give you the economic life of something, it doesn't apply here. We're different. So I just would like to say, try and get a company that understands the Eastern Shore.
Any other discussion?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
If I understand this right, the RFP that follows the motion that sets the time frame for when this will be accomplished?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I actually put in there that they had to have it done by a certain time in September if they were chosen. Yeah, that's all in there.
Okay, good.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, a motion to rescind a previous motion that was passed. Motion to rescind the motion regarding issuance of one share of stock for the Yacht Club, and the insurance of the issuance of one share of stock for the Beach Club. Purpose and effect. This motion will negate the action to issue the noted shares of stock. Background. Initial advice from legal counsel noted that pecuniary interest under Maryland alcoholic beverage law required that a share of stock be issued for the Yacht Club and Beach Club location to comply with the issuance of the liquor license at these locations. However, when OPA applied to renew the liquor licenses, the county, in conjunction with the state, had noted that these OPA entities had been listed as a single entity rather than as separate ones, which in turn does not require the issuance of a single share of stock to meet the license requirement. This motion is intended to document that the stock was not required to be issued per the motion from the March meeting. Is there a second?
So moved.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda was added when we went to approve the agenda, and it is a motion to approve the police vehicle take-home policy as presented by the GM. Is there a second?
So moved.
Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the police vehicle take-home policy as presented by the GM, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item was also added to the agenda during our approval of the agenda period, and it is the Fisher Marine contract. Tom?
Yes. I move that the Ocean Pines Board of Directors approve the recommendation by staff to award a contract in the amount of $196,875 to Fisher Marine to perform bulkhead repair replacement work at 10 through 20 West Mallard. That's tax map 21, parcel 273, section 14C, lots 114 through 119. Contract is to be funded via the replacement reserve bulkheads waterways account.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
As a discussion, the affected homeowners have waited since the fall of 2017 for this work to start. Due to many delays and now the recent default of the previous contractor awarded this work, Fisher Marine has submitted a contract to perform the work. Other contractors were canvassed and cannot accept additional work at this time. Approval of this contract will enable Fisher Marine to immediately order supplies and begin this work.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the contract to be awarded to Fisher Marine as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. That's it for new business. Next item on the agenda is appointments. There have been no requests for committee appointments, so we'll move to adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nobody's opposed.